But the reality is I need to be here to do what I do. I think
Right.
it's hilarious. There's all these agents that are like global real estate advisor. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's the most
Right. To
ridiculous
be
thing.
really good, you got to
Real estate's the most
commit.
local business there is. Don't say you're a global real estate advisor. It's a
Right.
joke.
I got carjacked
Okay.
and pistol whipped.
You're too pretty. What do you mean?
I I'll tell you the stories. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Because I also had a plan. Right. And that plan's not going to work. Like when you turn around and you have a gun pointing at your head,
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Whatever
And
they tell you to.
exactly.
I think luxury is the most watered down, unnecessary term. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right.
I'm John GRAFFT, and I love Chicago real estate. Between showings, I stop in my favorite places, talk with local business owners, and bring their story to you. This is my Chicago.
So what's elevated living?
What's elevated living?
Yeah.
It's a prop tech company.
Uh-huh.
We're taking over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see your guys' signs in every building I go into.
Do you live in a building?
I do.
You live in Old Town Park,
I
you
do.
said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, we, yes, Old Town Park, you guys don't use our full suite, but you use like 80% of our app. So like our app normally, I'll show you.
When I see it, it came down to me is all these buildings want all these services, but who wants to manage that? And
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are the conduit between
Amenity
the,
reservations. So like, if the
Okay.
building has guest suites, like at Old Town Park, they never used our system for this, but conference room bookings in the building. We also, the other nice thing that we do is we integrate Butterfly MX.
Okay,
So
that's
like,
cool.
for example, the biggest thing we solve for is when a property or a landlord, they have a building and they want to offer residents all these great things. They have to use usually 5 or 6 different apps. What we do is we bring everything into one system.
Okay.
So we bring, like Butterfly, for example. You don't have to download the Butterfly app. You download your branded Old Town Park app and it lives in there. Same thing with like your apartment doors. If your apartment has, I think you guys have Salto
Okay.
locks in Old Town Park, and like essentially there we can have you can have a virtual key in your phone.
I love that.
So if you're like not able to, you lose your key fob or what, you're locked out, but you have your phone because you had a wild night on Well Street,
Mm-hmm.
you can at least hold your, phone up to the door and it will open it.
They sold that feature in Tower 3 when they were showing the building, and then they were never able to implement it. We were also supposed to have it for the elevators.
Really?
And they were never able to integrate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a common thing that happens actually.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different systems, like you said. So are you working with APIs, or how are you bringing that all into one place?
All APIs. So
Yeah.
we do basically a few things. So like we have our own obviously system, and then we built our own like platform inside to man like each module, I guess. So there's an amenity reservation module, there's an access control module. So we built like our own, and then what we do is we basically just interface with other systems because they're all different.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. Like it's so much time. It's so time consuming to do what we're doing. Like when I first started doing this with the access, well, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I started looking into it. And
Elevated living?
the access control.
Okay, for the doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, cause we had, our app was our app, and our app had its own kind of native functions. But then, the feedback I get from managers is like, they want an all-inclusive app, right? That's what they're trying to solve for. Like, they don't want to have a million apps.
And they don't want to do this either. That's not their business. It's not their focus.
Exactly. So they want to have one inclusive app, and they don't want to deal with
Just
it.
a little closer.
They don't want to deal with it. So what we do is we essentially, we are the ones that solve their problems, right? Like we basically bring all the those access points and the hardware, we interface with it, and it's a huge lift because it takes months to just do one integration. But what's nice is like once you go live with it, like I have clients for example in Arizona where the residents when they move into the building they would have they had a package locker app to manage packages. They had an app for getting into the building, like a video intercom, right?
Okay.
They had an app to get into their elevators and common spaces, like fitness center, right? Like you want to go to fitness center, you got to scan your fob.
That's
or
different than the front door.
Yep. And then they had a separate app for entry into their unit.
Okay.
So imagine you have a separate one for entry into the building, common space and in unit access. So effectively they had 5 apps. They had 5 apps because there was another app that was like a resident app, and the resident app that does like all their work orders. They don't integrate
Like Resident Cafe or one of those.
yeah, they don't integrate with those things. So, that client was stuck having like, number one, I don't know who developed, whoever decided the technology, right? Like the people that are hardware integrators.
As you're sitting there, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, how did the building make these
Right.
decisions?
I don't know, right? But that's one
That creates a job for you. That creates a whole
that's the
business.
number one question. But that was that's like a good example of like what not to do with these hardware systems. So, we were able to bring 5 apps into one for those guys.
Okay.
So residents can just literally, hold their door or hold their app next to their phone door, and they could open the door, right? Or they could let their guest in, directly through the app as well. Like if you have a guest waiting, you just open up your app, swipe to unlock, boom, the door opens.
It's interesting you're saying all these things because as I'm going around Chicago and I see your company being advertised, I feel like it's advertised more for the luxury services.
Yeah. So we do that. So that was like what we started with. And
Okay.
like
When did you start?
So we started, I had another business. To give you a background, I had another business that was not in real estate. Kind of ended up in real estate on accident, but essentially my first business, we were doing more hospitality type stuff. We would do services. We would come to people's homes, help them with whatever they needed.
Okay.
That was my first business.
A cleaning
Nothing-
service?
It was cleaning. It was
Like
chores. It was-
concierge?
yeah, it was
Okay.
personal trainers that come to
Okay.
your, so it was like anything you wanted, we would bring to your home,
Okay.
right? And then what happened was I got approached by some property managers in different luxury apartments. They're like, hey, Konrad, this would be great inside our buildings. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I actually got, we got our first building, and
Which building was that?
it was actually Envy,
Okay.
ENV.
Yeah.
In River
Cool
North.
building. I hate the name.
Yeah. So Envy, and the manager, shout out to Danny Garcia. He was an assistant, I think, or leasing at the time. He's like, yeah, we need help with these services. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And before you know it, it took off. Like we had like 30, 40 buildings that same year.
Because once one building has it, then the other ones are like, hey, did you hear what's happening over there?
Yeah. So we blew up. And it's funny because this is like my side business. This was like a side business. I was just trying to make some extra money part-time when I was in grad school. And it ended up being like much more, right? So we were doing that. And then again, I have no idea. I'm an outsider, right? I'm a hospitality services type of person. I'm not a real estate technology, property management software guy.
Yeah. What were you going to grad school for?
Northwestern to get my doctorate in physical therapy.
Okay. So I mean,
Super random.
So
like,
different.
Super random. Like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, this is like,
Because you don't look like a nerd either. I was like,
people,
you're like prop tech. I'm building apps. Your app's good too. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, so I expected someone to walk in here being like glasses, the whole stereotypical.
I have glasses.
look.
I got my blue light. I have my blue light blocking glasses. When
I use
work.
those too.
But no, it's actually like super random. Anybody who knows the story, because the managers who know me from day one, like this is like 10 years ago, when we didn't have the app, they're always like, I can't believe you have like the most random things that you started with and you ended up doing this. Like they're always like in disbelief about it. To this day, they're always like, yeah, I remember you when you were just like a, young guy with an idea, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially I learned about all the different things, right? Like Yardi, Rent Cafe, all the different access control systems. So I started like 4 years building that business, and we got profitable. We were doing really well. I ended up graduating, got my license, my doctorate, didn't end up using it really because my business took off.
You have a great receipt. It looks really good on the wall.
Yeah, it's a great receipt. Exactly.
I'm local realtor John Graft. Check out our YouTube channel, GRAFFT Real Estate, for the largest collection of curated properties here in Chicago. Whenever you're ready to buy or sell, drop a line, let's talk. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this interview.
So, my business took off. And then what happened was I learned about these problems. Like managers would tell me like, oh, I'm having issues with this and this doesn't sync. And at the time, my app that I had, because I built an app, it was kind of adding to the problem. So like, you were
one more app.
We were one more app. We
Yeah.
were one more app that residents had to download. And I realized it. I was like, bingo. Like, what if someone's in the beginning, I was thinking, what if some company comes in one day and they bring everything together? I'm going to be out of business.
You're out.
And I'm one of those people where I don't like to lose. I like to, always like think ahead, even if it's like 5 years, 10 years. So I was like, what if we do it? Right. And I have no like coding background. I was like a tech guy. I knew how to do a lot of stuff on the computers. Right. But I was not like a coding where I could code an app. Right. So I ended up, meeting with like 20 different, companies essentially. And what I am good at is I'm good at, asking them what they would do, right? So you talk to them for a little bit. Each company tells you like, oh, here's what we would do, here's how we would build this, what coding language you would use, right? Like to me, I'm like, I don't know what these guys are talking about.
Yeah.
But ultimately I ended up learning a lot, so you interview these companies, you take notes. Each company tells you different things. Now you have some talking points. Now you understand kind of what they're talking about. And eventually I ended up partnering with a kind of like a software vendor that builds these systems that was also like younger, hungry, trying to kind of make it big.
Yeah.
And
you can see yourself in that person, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to have someone who's on the same level.
And we ended up working together, and it went really well. And, Elevated Living, we launched about 5 years ago. So, we had the other business for 4 or 5 years, learned a lot. Then we rolled out Elevated Living, and
So you're 9 years into this.
Almost 10 now.
Wow.
Yeah. Elevated Living, 5. But I've been in the industry for about 10 years.
Yeah. You have to count that first business, because without that first business, you wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
And you're still offering the services you offer today.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. We are. We basically, what my kind of hypothesis was, and it still is, and I'm very, very bullish on it, is that a lot of the companies that exist, they're insiders, right? Like they don't come from like a hospitality services background. And what I realized was that not only can you you can create a great experience for residents, but you can also monetize that experience, right? So a lot of landlords, they think about, oh, rent payment every month. That's how I make money. But what if you could add on housekeeping and a personal trainer and a dog walker and make your residents' lives more convenient? You bring these things to them. And so that was always my focus. And I was able to, with my first business, that's what we did. And I basically took what I learned there, combined it with the property management software. And I feel like we built like the best product that's the most complete, because to give you an example, a lot of what exists today, it's just an app. So the managers still have to figure out how to use it. They don't have people. They have to find the people to do all these services, right?
Do they do that, or do you do that?
With us, we do all of that.
Right. That's what I figured.
But I would say my competitors, everybody that exists, like there's an app, and you
Smart. You know what? That's funny, because I don't think you have a competitor. So you have a competitor because it's your business, but me as an outsider, but someone who's really who sees this every single day, there's no company that competes with you.
That does everything. I agree.
That's even promoted the way your company's promoted, though. Like you walk into any building, you're the company.
Yeah, we are. And my goal was always to white label it. So like we white label the experience under the customer's brand, so I don't want Elevated Living to be public facing. It's funny that you saw our brand everywhere, but like ultimately our apps are always built in the client's brand, their colors, their logos.
Okay.
And, we are trying, we are offering something that nobody else is offering, which is an all-in-one system. A lot of the technology that exists today, it's either you have an app and it's only an app, or you have a company that does services and only the services. And usually the services company has their own app, and then you have your resident app, right? So what we basically we merged these two things together. And I feel like that's the secret sauce, because now you can, you can offer a lower cost to the landlord or the management company for the technology, because you can offset those software fees by the services revenue that you generate in the building. When you have 300-400 people living in a building, it's like a little city.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem, and I like that you said ecosystem because that's on our website.
Yeah.
But
I use that word all the time for my wife because it's strange. We live in Old Town Park and I owned for 12 years before this. I mean, I've owned more places than I've ever rented. And our idea was let's rent and then we'll build something or we'll find the right building. We're looking for the right place to own.
right,
But we've gotten so used to living in the building that I don't know how we're ever going to leave
Right.
because it is an ecosystem. Now we have a babysitter who lives in the building who's like full time, who's
yeah.
become like part of the family, right? We have 5 grocery stores within 5 blocks. We have the sauna, the steam, the
yeah.
gym, the bowling, all this stuff. You're like, so why don't I just invest in real estate and maybe I'll use those proceeds to pay the rent instead of trying to make my home the focal point. And you'll never hear realtors say this. That's what's funny, right?
Right.
But you have to be honest because there's a time and place for everything. And not renting makes sense for some people sometimes. Owning makes sense for some people
Right.
sometimes. But the ecosystem is real.
It is. And like what you said, I agree with you, by the way. Like I think it is better to, I think if you're buying a property, I think it's better to buy an investment property that you can rent out and it's making money for you versus buying like a, first time home. It's not making money for you.
Yeah.
You could always rent somewhere, right? And that investment property is going to pay for your rent. Right. So it's like, I 100% agree with that. Like, it's funny because I'm actually in the same boat. I sold my place in Wicker Park. And, at the peak of the, pricing.
I sold 3 places during the peak. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, for me, we were kind of debating like where, what do I do? Do I do I stay here? Do I build a house? Do I move to Florida?
Let's go to Florida.
I know. It's
People are very short memories about Florida. Florida,
a hurricane comes and
okay,
right.
hurricanes for real. Like that's your natural disaster element, which you don't have here. But also, Florida, I mean, there's Palm Beach, and that's always the argument. There's like Palm Beach and there's Naples, sure, but and there's Miami. But the rest of Florida is kind of.
You need to live in like a gated community.
Yeah, see, I don't like that. I don't like you have
Like
to
it's
do
funny
this. You
because
have
like in
to do
Chicago,
that.
there's not like I almost feel like there's almost no gated communities. I think there's a few in Oak Brook that I've seen, but
There's a few.
really,
Yeah,
I've it's like I have not noticed them.
Yeah.
Like it's kind
It's
of
not
crazy.
as big here.
Whereas in Florida, like everything's a gated community.
Yes.
And if you're not in one, it's like not good.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Right,
That's what I don't like about Florida.
It's crazy.
It creates this me and them situation, which one thing I love about a city, and especially a city like Chicago, there's me and them here, sure, like that's going to exist anywhere, but I feel like it's a lot less prevalent.
Right.
The place you see it the least is New York. In New York,
Yeah.
it's everybody on the street.
Oh yeah, it's very, very. It's because there's lack of available places
There's
to live.
mass density. Yeah,
Mass
hyper
density, but there's also like just a lack of place to live. There's people that I luckily, with my business, we get customer service requests all over the country. We're in 145 cities now,
Nice.
all over, West Coast, East Coast. And
Are you outside of the US too?
we're going to be in Canada.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that would be our first one. But
Is that with Ani?
not with Ani. It's a different company.
Okay.
So essentially we it's interesting because people, you see things, how people live in different markets and how they, for example, in New York, we have clients who have like 3 roommates living in 800 square feet. I'm just
And they're
like,
35 years old.
it's crazy. It's crazy, because you can see the stuff. You can
Yeah.
see this inside the system. And whereas if you go to like a different market, you'll have 1 bedrooms that run $1,500 a month, and you have like 1,200 square feet. You have a fitness center. You have so much amenities, and you're only paying $1,500 a month, and you're paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month in like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And you have like 500 square
And
feet.
you might get stabbed leaving the building.
It's crazy. So, that's been like the most eye-opening thing. Same thing with like we do a lot of like concierge services and like the events, activities for residents, fitness classes as part of our program. And what I realized was, the warm places, their events, if you go on Elevate Living's Instagram, their events are wild. They have like 12 months a year, perfect weather. They have outdoor events all the time. Like people are, I feel like, here, the winter, everything closes up a little bit. That's why I was kind of like saying like, oh, I kind of want to go to Florida, or somewhere warm.
You should be in 2 places. I mean, why limit yourself?
Yeah.
As
So
many places as you need.
I have been kind of, I have been staying in Chicago and Florida kind of half and half, but essentially I haven't bought a place, officially. I've been kind of just renting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's essentially, that's the thing. Like I start seeing all these things of how residents are living in different markets, and like the events that my team is doing, and like, what activities are happening. And you're like, wow, we can never do that in Chicago, or we can never do that in New York. This will only work in like a warm state. It's actually very interesting. It's very eye-opening. I'm telling you, go on our Instagram, you might get a little depressed.
So I love what I do, but the biggest downside of what I do is I'm tethered to Chicago.
Right.
I don't like to say I'm rooted here. I am rooted, but I like to think of it as tethered, because you can travel, you can get around. But the reality is I need to be here to do what I do. I think it's hilarious. There's all these agents that are like, global real estate advisor. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's the most ridiculous
To be
thing.
really good, you got to.
Real estate's the most local business there is. Don't say you're a global real estate advisor. It's a joke.
Right.
But these guys are like, well, I work in Florida and I work in California, I work in Chicago. Like, no, you hire lots of people in lots of places and you like present this image. And I get it. Like, it works if if you're on TV, you can do those different things. But I like cold weather. I think it builds character. And I think
discipline.
Yes. And it makes you appreciate the warm weather so much. When we had those few breaks, like just last week, right, where the weather was beautiful, everyone's outside. People are like, I'm not working today.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go outside. This may not happen. It's April. This hasn't happened in 138 years or whatever it was. I'm taking advantage of this. And so I think if you're spoiled with warm weather all the time, while those people might be wiling out during those events, I think they come to their apartment and they're a little sad sometimes.
100%. I think like, what do you there's a saying, everything in moderation, and
even moderation.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where, I think, it's kind of like you want what you can't have, and other people want, the opposite. I've talked to, it's funny because I actually have some clients that work in property management, and they're like, they told me like, we want to move to Chicago, and they live in Florida. And I'm like, why do you want to move?
Interesting.
Chicago, there's so much stuff happening there. It's a big city. There's things to do. And I'll tell you this, like, I do love Chicago. I do love Chicago. It's a really nice city. It's clean. Like downtown, it is safe. I think it's safe for the most part.
There's outliers.
There's outliers, but I think all the crime for the most part happens like south of the city or on the west side of the city. It's not really downtown. You hear about it on the news when it does happen once in a while, but for the most part.
Have you ever experienced it?
Oh, let me tell you about my story.
Okay.
You want to hear this?
I do.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got carjacked and pistol whipped.
You're too pretty. What do you mean?
I'll tell you the story. So I was buying a new car. This is in 2021, and there was a car shortage. Remember the car shortage?
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
wait so I ordered a new car. I finally found this broker. I'm like, this broker's like, I can get you the car you want. It was a Mercedes, like the AMG, like the SUV, right?
Okay.
And every
G?
place, the GLE,
Okay.
AMG, yeah. And
Those look beefy
they are, but it's a nice big car,
without being too big. That's what I like
the
about it.
G-Wagon.
It's good for the city.
The G-Wagon is nice, but it's too beefy,
Agreed.
and
It's a toaster. It's a
the
moving toaster.
GLE is just like it's a nice SUV. It's good if you want to add a little gas, get around somebody. It does that, but it's also like a nice kind of classic car.
Do you get over the 6,000 pounds with that too for the tax write-off?
I don't know if it did or not. I don't think that one crossed 6,000.
Okay.
I think the GLS does.
Okay.
GLS and then the G-Wagon.
Okay.
But there was a 12-month wait on some of these cars. I found this broker, and he's like, I can get you any car you want, but in like 3-4 months. And I said, okay. So, at the time, cars were also going for like 20,000 over, 10,000 over.
Sometimes 20%.
And for me, I'm like a principles guy, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like if it's over the MSRP, I can't do it. So this broker's like, I can get it to you at MSRP, and I can get it in like 3-4 months, because he had like connections with. All I had to do was pay him a commission. It was like $1,000.
Done.
So me, I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
It's a fee.
So he got me this car from Ohio, in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in Ohio, and brand new, 2022. Waited for 4 months. I get the call from the truck because it was a truck delivering it. They're like, "Hey, we're going to be there later tonight around like 8, 9 p.m." So I I live in Wicker Park, get out of my car, my pajamas, and I end up walking like a block or two to the main street to meet the truck. I, meet the driver, sign some paperwork. He gets the car off the truck. I end up, get into the car, sit down, drive right in front of my place. And where I lived, it was actually kind of crazy, but I had like a playground for kids up to 10 years old. So there was kids there all the time. So
There's
like,
an age limit on it?
yeah, there was an age limit on the playground. So if you're over
Where?
10, you can't play there.
Okay.
So it was like a playground for little kids. So there was a lot of like just moms and families there all the time. So what I was doing, it wasn't something I haven't done before. So I ended up parking in front of my place, and I'm like, let's set up my mirrors, let's set up my Bluetooth, let's set up my seat. You're excited about
Yeah,
your
super
new car,
excited.
right? So I'm in there for, gosh, I would say 10 minutes in my car. All of a sudden my right door in the back opens by like someone opens it, and I'm like, oh, like, and I look and there's a gun pointed straight at my head. Like a guy, he's got a hoodie, he's got the mask on. He's like, don't move, don't move. And I was already, it's one of those things where everybody talks about it. Oh, what would you do when you get carjacked?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a plan. And the way I see it now is like, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Because I also had a plan. Right. And that plan's not going to work. Like when you turn around and you have a gun pointing at your head,
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Whatever
And-
they tell you to.
Exactly. So I was like, in my head, I was like, all right, this guy's going to take my car. It is what it is. I was like cool with the guy. I was like, look, man, here's the keys. You have 2 sets of keys. I just, I had everything in the car. I had the contract in the back that I just signed. And anyway, this guy, it's funny. He thought I was reaching for something. So he pistol whipped me. He basically crawled up from the back. And, as I was giving him the keys, I kind of reached to my crotch. That's where the keys were. He's like, stop reaching, whacks me in the head right here. And then I'm like, okay, relax, here's the key. So he like calmed down a little bit. And then he's like, give me your phone, give me everything. And I didn't have my wallet because I was in my pajamas, right? I didn't have my wallet. So he's like, stop lying to me. Stop lying to me. And at this point, this is where I got a little worried because I felt like I was calming him down the whole time. Because, obviously this guy's got adrenaline. He's running on adrenaline. He's, he doesn't know if I have a gun. He doesn't know. So I was trying to calm him down, talk very like, relax, just let me go. Like, you could take the car. But when I told him I don't have my wallet, he started like saying like, stop lying, you mother effer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, dude, like check me. I don't have my wallet.
I'm in my pajamas.
And then he ended up pistol whipping me again. And he's like, stop lying, give me your wallet. I'm like, look, I'm in my pajamas. I go, I just got this car off of a truck. I go, there's a contract in the back. I go, if you don't believe me, like, I don't know what else I could tell you. And finally, I think like what I said got to him and he let me go.
That's scary because I walk around without my wallet all the time.
Yeah, it was like I said, I lived in Chicago my whole life. I would go out like when I was younger, back in the day, I would go out, you go out to bars, you walk home. I used to live at North Water Apartments.
Yeah.
Right by in Streeterville.
Yeah.
So I'd walk back from all the bars.
And
in
McClure, in
North.
East North Water.
Yeah. I would walk back all the time, and there's shady people, and nobody ever bothered me, right? And I was either by myself or with the groups. So
That's a strange area too, because it dead ends there, right?
Yep.
And it's always empty.
Yep.
And you're in the middle of the city, kind of.
Yep.
Really are. Like there's Navy Pier, there's a Ferris wheel, lights all surrounding you. There's Michigan Avenue above you, but it's also empty.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So it's I never had any issues, and I like I said, where I was parked, I've done it a million times, and like the one time I got my brand new car that I waited for 4 months, someone comes in, steals it within 10 minutes of me having it. But yeah, I ended up getting it back. Like it was kind of funny. Like
What happened? Yeah.
So what happened was so I went inside, called the cops. My wife, luckily, she had an iPhone, and I'm like very like crazy. So as soon as I buy a new toy, I always want to like set up my app. So I set up the app on both of our phones, thank God, before I picked the car up, right? You can do it like with the ID remotely, I guess, somehow. So I ran straight into my apartment. I didn't have my keys because this guy.
You're like, wife.
So I'm like, boom, 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 and she thought she opens the door. I'm like, I got carjacked. The car's gone. She's like, you're lying. She's like, started laughing, and I'm like, no, like,
look at my head.
I go, well, there was no bump, like,
Okay.
you couldn't really see it, but essentially, like, it was one of those things where, I'm like telling her, I'm like, I'm not kidding. Like, and finally she like, okay, like he's not kidding. I'm like, give me your phone right now. I had my adrenaline when I like got out. I was like ready to go. I'm like, I need to get like my shotgun, like, like I'm ready to go. Like I'm gonna get and I
Track this guy.
Dude, I got the phone.
Were you like, give me your keys, I'm gonna get your car, I'm gonna find this guy? What would you do?
So imagine this. Imagine so where I lived in Wicker Park, it was 3 units.
What's the address? Like intersection?
Chicago and 𝗙𝗥𝗢𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗧𝗬.
That's in the Wicker Park. The different story.
Ukrainian village.
Yeah.
So essentially, it was a triplex, and I had like the bottom floor. It was like a duplex down with the garage and all that. And the only way you can get inside my place was either through the side door that goes to all the units, or you would have to like jump onto my deck. And my deck was probably like, it was a
Front deck or back deck?
back deck.
Okay.
And the deck was raised. There was no way to enter it from the back.
Yeah.
It was like a private, you
Yes.
couldn't get up there.
I like that for just that reason.
Oh, yeah.
No one can walk up
Oh
there.
yeah, but it was like, there's like a barrier, right? Like a handle. So like it had a wall. So we had about, I don't know, 8 feet, 9 feet high. You can't imagine how fast I got up there.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe it. Like I did like a jump where I just grabbed the top of it, did like a muscle up, and I just whoop. It was like 2 seconds, and it was because of the adrenaline. I just didn't feel anything, and I got in there, started knocking on the door. She gave me the phone. Then I literally jumped off the deck. So I got my phone, jumped off the deck. I ran back to see if the guy was still there, but he was like already driving away. I may have had something with me,
Okay.
but anyway, he got away, and that was it. But I'm surprised he stole that car because whoever stole it was just not really smart, because it has GPS.
I don't think any of these guys stealing these cars realize that. I think they're joyriding, or they're trying to get quick money.
It was a joyride, and I can tell you exactly what they were doing. I had everything in my Mercedes app. They did 80 miles between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. They drove 80 miles all over downtown and Chicago and the burbs. They had
Dropping off and picking up
they were
something.
smoking something in it because my sunroof was open at one point.
Okay.
You could see all that in the app. You could see what they were doing.
Wait, you can see when someone opens your sunroof?
Everything.
That's
I
awesome.
could see which windows were open.
That's really
which
cool. I
sun-
didn't know that.
Yeah, shout out to Mercedes, right?
Yeah, that's really cool.
The only thing that sucked was I couldn't remotely shut it down. That was like the one thing that I'm like, how is this not? I had a button that says shut off engine,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't let me click it. And here's the crazy part. The police, right? Let's talk about the police, because this is where I got really annoyed, right? Because I feel like this is, and I can go full circle with the story, because 2 weeks ago, I just got like my final like conclusion to this. So I called the police. The police showed up 1 hour later, and I'm like, hey guys, here's my GPS. I know exactly where they are right now. Let's go get it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you can imagine they're down to go. They're like, no, we can't go. We're going to get like a detective on it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you mean you guys can't go? I'm like, I know where the car is. Let's just hop in your car. That's what I thought was going to happen. Right?
My mind's blown right
Yeah. Like, you imagine, like, you have a GPS, Like you can track them real
You,
time.
you think they'd be like, let's go right now?
Yeah, or even like
get in the back
or
seat.
even like, hey, you know what? We can't take you.
Yeah.
But give us your phone.
Yeah.
And we'll go take care of it. They're like, no, we can't. And I said, okay, well, what do I do? They're like, well, we have a detective on it, and they're gonna call you with updates. And so then I started asking because I'm like, again, I'm very OCD, and I'm like, so what is the typical timeline look like? And they're like, well, most people that get carjacked, they get their car back within 5 to 7 days. And I'm like, so you're telling me, and then here's
it's on a container
here's the
somewhere.
kicker. Here's the kicker. I said, so I'm like, what? So what do they do? These carjackers, what do they do during those 5 to 7 days? Well, they're gonna use your car to rob other people. They're gonna do crimes with it. They're gonna do theft. They're gonna steal things. And I'm like, oh my God, my brand new car, right? Like they're gonna rob other people with it. They're gonna destroy it probably. They're gonna do stupid things, right? And the next day I had like 4 or 5 demos with clients, like big developers and like property management companies. And I was just like, I'm canceling everything. I emailed them. I said, hey, meeting's canceled. Sorry, something happened. My mission was to get my car back the next day.
I love this.
And I woke up at 5 a.m., skipped the gym that day, basically started calling 911. I'm like, hey, they're here, go get it. And they're like, oh, we have a detective that's going to come, blah, blah, blah. I would bug them every 30 minutes. I figured if I keep bugging them and updating like the whereabouts and all that, they're going to finally give in. And I ended up telling them like, hey guys, if you guys don't go, I'm going to go myself, right? And that's the turning point. So anybody who gets carjacked, like, that's what you have to tell them. You have to say, I know the GPS. I'm going there with people and we're going to get it back. They're worried about your safety. So what ended up happening was after that, they were like, I got a private call from like an unknown number. And the guy's like, hey, you don't go down here. Just tell me where to go. And I guided him where to go. And they got my car like 2 hours later. So it was that quick, but you need to tell them that I'm going to go do it myself. Then I think there's like a liability potential thing for them.
Yeah, totally.
Possibly.
Totally. No, you open the door for liability for them. That's exactly what it is. Because the car is an insurance item, right?
Yeah.
They're like, whatever, it's property. He has insurance. Did you even have insurance?
I had insurance.
Okay, good, good.
And I called my agent.
Yeah.
So imagine this, the day before, I'm like, hey, let's activate the insurance.
Yeah.
Right. And most people wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Most people activate the insurance like a week later, 2 weeks later. So I got lucky, but I called my agent and the next day I got, carjacked. And she's like, so you're telling me you just called me yesterday to set up insurance and your car is already stolen. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
I had a
She couldn't believe it.
I had a similar thing happen once. I had my car broken into and I had just got a new insurance policy and I put watches on it and different things. And this is a true story. I take off my watches sometimes, right? While I'm in the car and I'm just driving and I had 2 watches in the car and they were like, you're telling me you had 2 watches in your car when it was broken into.
Right.
Really? You want us to, and like, they gave me such a hard time about it.
Really?
Yeah. Cause it's the same thing. Like I just got the policy and I just put all the property on there.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I think people need to get insurance before you, buy whatever you have, your property you have.
Yeah.
Like, because they if I didn't have insurance, which I have friends, I talk to friends, I'm like, they're like, kind of like, I get my insurance like a few days after I get my car usually. And I'm like, yeah, I know you would have been liable.
I got a car for the first time in 8 or 9 years. I was Ubering everywhere until then. And I still prefer that, but that's a different story. But I got my insurance beforehand for the same thing. So I was so worried. I was like, what if I'm driving home and that happens? But when I bought it, I'm coming to think about this. When I bought it, they asked for my insurance.
Yep.
So I wonder if they would have let me leave if I didn't have it. I wonder what that would have looked like. Or they would try to sell me something on the spot, probably.
Probably try to sell you on the spot. But if they did check your insurance, that's a good thing. I think that's like
a good fail safe.
Yeah, it's a good fail safe because it protects, maybe them too, potentially.
I think so.
Where they're like, oh, someone stole my car as soon as I left your lot.
They check your license too. They won't let you drive without a license. And I didn't have my physical license. All I had was a picture.
I know they didn't, like for me, they didn't check. Like,
okay.
For me,
because you were dealing with a broker.
It was all
getting
through
off the
broker.
truck.
It was all through email. They didn't ask me if I have insurance. They didn't ask anything. But here's the hard part. Try getting that car out of the police impound. So like the detective's like, hey, we're gonna because the car, I had no keys, right? So the detective's like, hey, we're gonna like tow this car for you. Like it's not gonna cost you anything, to our impound like in Calumet, Illinois. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So bad idea. I don't know why I did that. I should have just paid and got my own tow truck. But to get it out of there, they're like, we need this and this and this. We need a city sticker. We need this. And I'm like, guys, I don't have any of these things because I just got it.
Yeah.
I have all the paperwork in the car. They took all my paperwork. They took my license plate. I didn't know anything.
The cop or the robber?
The robber, they took everything. Everything that was important information was in that car, inside a folder. So I didn't have a city sticker. I didn't have any of these things that they were asking me for. And like when you're at an impound, they're very by the book. You need to have these 4 things.
Yeah.
And I was missing like 1 or 2 of them. And I just couldn't get them because I didn't have them anymore. Like I never either set it up.
Just got the car.
I never set it up. I never got like a city sticker. So it's like,
that's another scam.
They were basically they wouldn't give me my car back. I ended up just standing there. I'm very like, I don't give up. So I just stood there and I kept bothering them I think I was there for like 3.5 hours. And I just kept saying like, look guys, like I'm not leaving here until you guys get me my car. I gave you all the information. Here's the purchase agreements because I got it from my email. I had them send me everything they could. And finally the supervisor that was sitting in the back for the whole time, she comes out, she goes, all right, I'm going to approve this. And she approved it and I got my car. But it was like crazy. Like they told me like they wouldn't want to give my car back. It's crazy. Like that. So that's Chicago. Like, the police situation, I got rubbed the wrong way, but so here's a full circle now. So, the detective called me. They're like, hey, we're going to get like fingerprints from your car. I said, okay, it's fine. Perfect. 1 year later, okay. 1 year later, I get a call. Connor, we have somebody, right? We have the suspect matches the fingerprints, everything matches up. And, we want you to come to the police station to, choose from a bunch of photos and see if you can identify the guy. Now, mind you, the guy had a hoodie on, he had a face mask. This was a year ago. And I'm like, hey, is this guy like a young guy? Like, do you know how tall he is? They couldn't tell me anything, right? They're like, we can't say. You have to like be recorded. There's like a whole process. They record you. They give you like very specific instructions because it has to be like legally, I guess, admissible. So they showed me, I think it was like 6 or 8 photos of guys. And they said, all these guys are carjackers. And all you got to do is choose the one that, you think carjacked you. Now, the eyes, that's what I was going off of. So I'm asking them, can you give me like the height of these guys? Because I know like off the height and like their stature and like their weight.
How'd you know the height? He was sitting down.
How he crawled through the back. He was shorter than me. He was short. He was like a tall person wouldn't have been able to do what he did.
So when you said that, I was like, I could never do that.
He was like it was kind of crazy. Like he crawled with one arm like a spider while he was holding the gun at the same time. And he basically just crawled like into it was pretty impressive. Like someone with long limbs, like anything over 5'9", you just wouldn't be able to do it. Like I'm telling you. So, and this guy was like very skinny, very young, 16, maybe 17. They couldn't tell me the age, that was not great. They couldn't tell me the height. They couldn't tell me the weight. They couldn't tell me anything really. Just I saw their faces. So I was between 2 guys. And I'm telling the guy, it's one of these 2 guys, 100%. 100% I told him. And I'm like, can I choose 2? And the guy's like, you got to choose 1. So I basically went eeny, meeny, miny, right? And I ended up choosing the guy that it wasn't. But it's funny because I asked him, I said, who was it? It was the other guy. The guy, like the detectives, they want you to choose the right guy.
Yeah.
Because then they have a case. And they were so disappointed when I chose the other guy.
The fingerprints aren't enough?
It's crazy. They can't do anything. So anyway, so I left the station because I chose the wrong guy. The guy's back on the street. Isn't that crazy? So that's why everybody's getting carjacked because there's literally zero repercussions You'll just get let out back on the street. You have no charges pressed against you. So you have nothing on your record.
Yeah.
You have nothing. You're like you can walk up to somebody with a gun, take their car, and let's just say you get arrested for it. Your fingerprints were in the car. They have all the fingerprints. But if this person fails to identify you in a lineup, no charges against you, you know. And that's what's happening with a lot of people. I think that we're getting carjacked. They're just not able to prosecute.
That's a wild story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So elevated carjacking.
Elevated carjacking.
Yeah.
So, back to elevated living.
Yeah.
I really like your name. Let me tell you why. Because you're offering an elevated product, as in maybe a higher echelon.
Mhm.
You're in high rises, so you're
Yeah.
elevated. I love it. It's very smart.
Yeah, the plan was we wanted to have something very general that would work in real estate, and it's we always wanted to white label, so we wanted to something that like fits really well with someone else's brand. So if whether it's Ani, Old Town Park, where you live, if you saw Old Town Park as a logo and then you saw elevated living, you might not think that elevated living is like an Uber or a Lyft. You know what I mean? It's not like an iconic, very like strong.
You're not trying
in
to
your
be the
face.
dominant brand. You're
I'm not.
trying to sit in the back, let the main brand take
Shine.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that was my goal. And it was I'm glad you like the name.
Yeah.
I
Well, it makes sense. Sometimes you see these names and they're so corny.
You know how I got the Instagram?
No.
So as soon as I bought the domain on the website,
Was it available?
it wasn't. It was there was a person in New York that owned it.
What did it cost you?
I paid $1,000. But imagine this. It was like one of those things where it was like a very fast type of thing. So
Did you use a broker or did you go direct to the person?
no, I found there's a website.
Who
called,
is?
like- yeah, who is?
Mhm.
Oh, you know it.
I
Yeah.
know all these.
Yeah. So
I own like 100.
I went on.
Yeah.
You have 100
I have
domains.
like 100 domains.
Yeah, I have probably the same amount. So essentially, I went on the Wiz, found the actual owner because they didn't have privacy on. So I called her cell phone, and I'm like, "Hey, I want this website. Are you using it?" She's like, "No," but she's like, "There's two people trying to buy it from you right now, and we don't know how to transfer it." And I'm like, "Look, how much are they offering?" She's like, $800. I'm like, "I'll give you 1,000, and I'll help you do it right now on the phone." And so I'm like, go on Google, go here, go there.
Where'd she have it parked?
I paid her, I think she had a GoDaddy.
Easy.
Yep. And I paid her through PayPal. She sounded trustworthy. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I paid her up front with
Yeah. If you didn't do it, you might not have gotten it.
yeah, exactly. Because those two people trying to get it as well. So I ended up paying her through PayPal. She's like, I got the money. I'm like, okay, great. Click. She was a little older, so I felt like I could trust her. And
Yeah.
so she ended up transferring it to me. I got it. Then the next goal was getting the Instagram. I never got the Facebook, unfortunately, but the Instagram I got. This is actually a funny story. It was like a guy in Colorado, in Denver, who was like 10, and he smokes weed all the time. And it was
Wait, there's a 10-year-old smoking weed in Colorado?
It was
buying up Instagram handles?
he was
just
okay, I don't know if he was 10, 12, 13, 14, but he was in that 10 to 14 range,
15-year-olds.
okay? And he was a skateboarder, and he had pictures of buds all over his Instagram. So like imagine like elevated living's Instagram. I wish I had a screenshot of this just so I could show people.
That'd be great.
Because they don't believe me. All of his posts were pictures of marijuana buds. And then occasionally you get like a skateboard in the background somewhere, right? So I DM'd the guy. I go, hey man, I want your Instagram like profile. Would you sell it to me? I'm like, how much would you want? He's like, $50. and now, so in my head, I'm like, okay, this guy's gonna scam me, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, it's $50.
What do you have to lose?
What do I have to lose? So he's like, Venmo me $50. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna lose this money for sure. I Venmoed it to the guy. The guy transferred it to me.
You know what's really interesting about that? PayPal for the older person, Venmo for the younger person, both owned by the same company.
Exactly. But you gotta PayPal, they control everything.
Yeah.
but it's funny because the guy sent it to me and I was like, oh my God, like this guy is like so honest over here. I thought I was gonna get scammed 100%. So I ended up getting it. And Facebook didn't work out. I actually it's hard to figure out who owns Facebook pages.
Yeah, if they don't respond, you're SOL, right?
Yeah. And then the Facebook
You don't have
page,
to register anything.
well, they didn't even have it. I don't think it even existed, but it was said it was taken, but it wasn't showing up. It was like a private page or something.
So if you get it once and then you try and change it, then that's gone.
Right.
So I've had Facebook handles that I think I closed them, but you still can't get them today. Like
Interesting.
I don't know if it's 12 years or 12 months or whatever it is where it finally refreshes.
Yeah.
But if you cancel that account, you can't get it
It's in
after
the
that.
system.
It's in the system taken.
Yeah. So
Because it probably logs as an account, like a user for them.
probably, and you can't even recover those sometimes either. I had an issue where I couldn't recover an Instagram account. They just inactivate. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, it's because I had like an old Hotmail, and it was sending me through like a loop. Where it's like talk to an agent, and the agent's like, well, what's your birth date? And back in the day, to make an email, you needed to be over a certain age.
Oh yeah.
So everybody faked their, like, imagine when you were like 12 or 10, and to make an email, you needed to be a certain age for some services. So you would fake your email, like your birth date, right? So when they ask you for the security question, when were you born? It was never accurate for me because I always had.
Oh, so you didn't remember it because they asked you?
Yeah. Imagine like the first emails that came out, like Hotmail.
I still do that today. I never put in my correct information.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I do for my main one, I guess.
No,
but
why?
Yeah, you're right.
It's weird. They're collecting that
know
data.
everything.
What are they
know,
selling?
Yeah, they know everything.
I don't want to make it easier.
They know everything over there. But yeah, that's how I got the name. So it's a good name, and it's one of those things where I think the name matters because my first business,
The name matters.
the first business, it had like the word shy inside, like Chicago. Bad idea. That's not scalable. Like anybody who's listening to this, don't put the name of the city of your business in the domain or the business LLC name.
My domain is chicagorealestate.io. Just putting that out there.
Wait, is yours really? Well, but what did you say earlier? You said you're tied here.
I'm here.
This is your specialty, right? So,
and for SEO, Chicago real estate.
Yeah. So for you, it's different because you're only here. You're not trying to go to Florida. You're not trying to go.
No interest.
You're also not trying to go into other, like
Well, and I have all those.
What if you wanted to offer housekeeping and you wanted to offer all these other services? Like, then you might be in trouble, right? But if you're only doing real estate in Chicago and that's your main objective, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Which my business, which was the services, as I grew in Chicago, the next step was you expand.
You need to be everywhere.
Yeah. So my name limited our initial name limited us. So elevated living is just very general.
They say if you're gonna create a company, you want it to be as broad and general as possible.
Yeah.
And I believe it's @Properties. @Properties, their LLC is @World Properties.
Yeah.
Right. It's like think big. Why not?
Yeah. You have to, because then you never know where the company's going to go.
Yeah.
And if you commit, like with your business, like you're committed.
Yeah.
So you don't,
For better or for worse.
you don't want to lose. You want to win, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to make sure that you keep growing, doing more deals, and you're eventually going to you might get to a point where you're like, shit, I want to go international.
Yeah.
And you might need to change it potentially. But as long as you want to stay in Chicago, then I think it's perfect with SEO.
The brand name we run with is GRAFFT, just GRAFFT.
Okay.
But for SEO purposes, website Chicago Real Estate.
Do you do anything for SEO, like to
I
rank?
used to do more. I need to do more. But our video. So if you just Google Chicago Real Estate, you usually find our videos.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube videos are good. Do you do
video.
YouTube?
We have over 2 years.
So-
It's over 200.
I'll give you an example. I was looking in Florida, right, of like where to live. And I was at the gym one time. I'm just on a treadmill walking. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna multitask. So I went on YouTube, typed in like top recommended places to live in Florida or communities to live in. And I'm telling you now, like it's nice to, like, if you don't know a realtor down there and you're looking for one, or if someone doesn't know somebody, right? You want to get someone that matches your vibe.
Totally.
At least for me, right? Like
I always say, I want someone who wants to work with me. That's
Exactly.
my perfect client. Someone who wants to work with me.
Yeah.
Not
Who
someone
knows,
who
like,
just got like someone clicked a button. Now they're talking.
yeah, like you have like a certain style. Like
Yes.
you do things a certain way. You like certain restaurants. Like you want to get someone who's very similar to you, because then they could recommend where to live or what to do.
You're going to jive, you're going to vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, in Florida, like if you just go to like one of those Redfin,
Florida has a lot of
you don't
characters.
know who you're getting, and you don't know what their vibe is, what their style, what they like. It might not be the same thing that you like, and they're gonna
And they're
push you
choosing
to
it for you.
Yeah,
I want to
they are.
choose, no matter what I'm doing in life, I want the choice.
Yeah.
All the aggregator sites, Zillow, Redfin, those always crack me up because I'm like, you're letting an algorithm or a machine choose the agent who's willing to pay the most to get your information, which means they're going to pay whoever works for them the least.
Yep.
So they can have the largest spread.
Of course.
And that's the business model of agents who pay for Zillow leads or are on Redfin.
Yeah, you just get random people, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, and it's not custom tailored to you versus if you have somebody, you know, someone like you,
Yeah.
where
It's like going to a restaurant and being like, just give me whatever you like.
yeah,
Who would
It's-
ever do that?
like anything in services, right? Like everybody's like, oh, I got my own housekeeper. Like I rely on it. I have my own trainer. I have my own realtor. Like
Yeah.
you want to have your person.
Agreed.
You know, it is a very individualized business, custom. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it. You know, I know we deal with services all the time, and people always are like, "Oh, can I have the same housekeeper come again? Can I have the same trainer? Can I have the same dog
Well,
walker?"
I mean, I have a housekeeper, and so once you have the housekeeper that does a good job, because they do people clean differently, right?
Right.
I even have a checklist of all the things I like done, but I feel
You have a
too-
checklist?
Absolutely,
Dang,
absolutely, I have a checklist.
that's crazy.
Well, I mean, homes are my thing. I know how a home should be
Well,
cleaned.
is it for your home?
It's for anyone's home who wants it. Like, you want the
Okay.
checklist? Ask me. I'll give it to you. But I'm also half Polish, and my mom was a cleaning lady.
Oh
so
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm like, I enjoy cleaning. It's therapeutic, but I don't like doing it.
Right.
But I know exactly what needs to be cleaned and how.
Yeah. You could tell. You know, you like when you walk into a place and it's not clean, you know, to the T, you can tell.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I look, all my housekeepers, like I got to give them props because it's like it's a tough job.
Yeah.
You know, we have right now we have probably over 100.
How do you do the hiring?
So you know, we have two parts to our business. There's like the software part, and I call the software part's the easy part.
I agreed.
Software runs itself, like reserving, you know, managing amenity reservations, work orders, maintenance requests.
Well, once you have that
Paying
written and
rent.
done,
It's
you're maintaining.
Yeah, the code it's flawless. It
Yeah.
can make a mistake, you know. Services, and this is why, like, you know, going back to my point earlier, like there's a lot of competitors that do either the services or the software. Not many do both because software companies, they don't want to be viewed as service companies because their valuation is going to tank. They can't raise money,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. So we kind of do both. And the way we do the services is, you know, we basically run, so we built a platform that has like a booking system plus a property management app. So we have like full control over like the hiring. So like I have people that do the hiring, we onboard them into our platform. And then essentially you can book a housekeeper, you can book a trainer, and then we manage all of it. So all the payroll goes through us. You know,
Are those people employees?
it depends. So we have a mix. We have some that are employees, some that are contractors. It just depends on,
Employees seem like too much.
well, it depends. So like, for example, in Chicago, which is our first market, my goal is always density. So I need density.
Yeah.
And, you know, originally my plan was that I was only going to do elevated living in Chicago. And at a point, I had probably 120 buildings just in Chicago within a 2-mile radius. So what does Amazon do? Amazon builds these big warehouses and they do all the distribution, shipping, right? If they are not getting a lot of density and volume, the business doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So their distribution centers are very like near big cities usually. So same thing, our business works the same way. So in Chicago, I have more employees because I have, you know, one housekeeper can be hopping around to 5 different buildings within maybe half a mile of each other.
Yeah.
So when we started scaling to other cities, I knew it was like a big undertaking because I would have to replicate that Amazon model where we are basically building, it's an investment up front because I would have to hire more people up front to, you know, if we had one building in one city.
You have to have it before someone requests it. When someone hits that button, I want my place clean tomorrow. You can't be like, oh, let's go find the person.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, it was brutal because those are the years when I was making the investments. And at the same time, the pandemic was happening, you know? So it was kind of like,
And everyone's talking about leaving sittings. I bet you got nervous.
it was interesting. It was an interesting time, but like we pivoted, you know, we were very like we have a lot of revenue streams, in elevated living, and we were very fortunate that some of the revenue streams went down, some of them increased, so it kind of balanced it out, and we didn't really take a hit.
Good.
But essentially, we made a big investment in these new markets, and like now we're at a point where the last, I would say, 12 months, we have at least 10, 15, 20 buildings in each of these new markets. At least the big ones, like if you look at like top 20 in the US, we're like very well set up. Like, and we're getting to the point where like other properties are like, oh, what's elevated living? What's this? How do we get this? And the more properties we add to the system, the better it gets with the services, the customer service, right? Like, because if someone gets sick, right, and let's just say they have a whole schedule of cleans, if you only have one cleaner, right, or whatever it is, dog walker, guess what? Someone's dog is not getting walked that day, right? But if you have more density and you have multiple walkers and someone calls off work, gets sick, hey, can you pick up an extra shift? Done. They do it.
Probably
right?
happy to do it too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So my goal right now is we need as much density as possible. So we're really kind of doing like we're focusing on like a land grab. How can we get elevated living into as many properties as possible? Because it's ultimately going to improve the experience for the residents, the experience for the landlords, the managers, and it's going to become more profitable for us as well, right? So there's a few moving parts there, but yeah, we hire everybody in house. So
Are you thinking about an exit strategy?
possibly, my goal right now is, I want to become the biggest and the best platform. And there's definitely like a few players, but they, like I said, they all do like, I have competitors that only do services, only do the software. And I feel, and even like, for example, access control is a good example. Access control companies that only did at like door opening, they're also kind of going into the resident engagement. So they're all kind of going to where we're in that same space. They all want to control the main app that the residents use, I guess, right? So
Well, what you did was very difficult.
yeah,
Like, that's a
the
very hard on-
services. The services are the most difficult.
But I think the undertaking of tying all the apps together, that's intimidating for someone who's standing on the outside.
It's a very, I'll tell you this, it's a very sticky business. It's a very, to get into the business, it's almost like you have to pay a gatekeeper, because there is like, have you heard of Yardi?
Yeah.
Right? Yardi, Entrata, RealPage, these are the gatekeepers, because they are like the main.
They have the main platform.
They're the main platform.
Every building is using those on the back.
Yeah, those are the accounting systems. That's how they pay out their investors. So you have to, like, whatever app you roll out, whatever service you roll out has to connect to that system. And guess what? To connect to that system, right off the bat, you're paying $100,000 a year in annual fees to these big companies just for them to give you access.
Oh, so you have to pay them for the API?
$100,000 a year plus. And then you got to develop it and maintain it.
Those
So
are public companies too.
yeah, so you have to
Yardi
basically,
does
not only do you have to pay them an annual fee of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you also have to have a team of developers that you hire in-house to update the API, maintain it so there's no interruptions to the residents, to the management team. So that's the gatekeeper. So it's very hard, I think, to get into this business because of those gatekeepers, those big PM property management software companies, and their legacy. These things they've been around for so long.
When you use the right word, sticky too, because once someone has you, they're not going to want to leave.
Yeah,
It's gonna be so painful.
if they're using our app to open doors and they're using our app to do events, the property do services, and the residents like the services, it's very hard to get rid of that, especially because there's so many things interconnected to it. So it is a sticky business. But like I said, there's definitely competitors, like going back to like the exit strategy. My goal right now is, I'm not planning for an exit anytime soon. My goal right now is,
You see a lot more canvas.
yeah, there's a lot more canvas. We have a lot of buildings, but when you look at like the total number of units that are getting built right now, just under construction, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like I feel like we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. And what happens is, a lot of times these companies that do a really good job, like I had one competitor that, I feel like they were kind of going into my space a little bit. They had an app, but they didn't do like the services, but they were like I would say like a really solid competitor. I respect good competition
Yeah.
because it makes you better.
Makes you work harder.
Yeah.
I love when I see a realtor who's good, it makes me feel good
Yeah.
because I hate
You're
this-
on your game.
Yes, and I feel like, especially for realtors, because it's a low barrier to entry, you see more bad than good.
Yep.
And you see people who give us a bad name, and you're like, oh man, this person. When you meet someone who's great, you're like, damn, I want to be like that person. And
Exactly.
and I think I've gotten better over my career because of that. Because you see good people, you're like, oh, that was smart what they did. You're like, oh, his assistant sent this out. That's a nice. Let's R&D that.
Yeah, exactly.
Rip off and duplicate.
Rip off and duplicate. Yeah. So essentially, like, I had this one competitor where they sold, and I feel like they sold too early. It was actually two of them. One of them sold for 30 million bucks. Another one sold for 100. And in my opinion, I think they sold themselves short. Because if they kept going, I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to get $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, and my life's going to change. And same thing with like raising money. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to raise money, venture capital, and little do most people know is that now you need to either grow exponentially fast at their pace that they set. You have to, you can't implement certain services or things that they don't want you to implement.
Yeah.
Right. So like, for example, a lot of my venture-backed comps, they can't do services because if they did, it would lower their valuation.
Are you 100% owner?
I'm
Okay.
Yeah. So I have and just say this, I sold some secondary shares
Okay.
of my stock. So essentially, I didn't raise money in terms of like, hey, the money goes to the business. I ended up pulling some money out personally,
Yeah.
privately.
That's smart. You have to do that at sometimes.
Yeah,
And
so-
when people aren't being paid, they feel the pressure to take something like VC or private equity money because they want to actually do something.
Yeah.
They've been working on this. They want to have the
So-
Mercedes eventually.
So
right?
in my case, it was like, to give you like a little background, right? Like I was bootstrapping the business. I had my first business for like 4 or 5 years. Then we bootstrapped. I basically built our app with funds from profits. So, I paid myself a salary of like, 70, 80,000 a year, right? Back in the day. And everything else, I'd be like, let's reinvest, let's build an app, let's, keep growing the business, let's do more. And, after a while, you get kind of like, okay, like our business had all this cash flow, the last few months, do I pull it out? Do I, buy something crazy?
It's fun looking at that, isn't it?
Right. Or do I reinvest? And, I'm very disciplined, I think, at least I tend to think, and I was doing it for a long time. And, when the pandemic happened, I realized that, I'm not invincible. The elevated living is not invincible. Like anything can happen anytime. And, I took some chips off the table, right? Like, we didn't need the money from like a funding standpoint. It was more like direct to me. And that's what I did. So, instead of saying, every month I'm thinking, do I put the money in the business or take it out every month now? And I'm glad I did the deal, to be honest, because I'm at a point where money for me, I'm good, right? Like I'm good. I did a deal. I basically got a really great deal with my, investor and now my business partner. He's older than me. He knows things that I don't know. He comes from more of like a hedge fund finance background. I'm more of like an operator, marketing, sales background. So it's like a perfect fit because when I don't know something, I go to him and, he's older and he's just got experience in it. He's bought and sold companies, 5 or 6 companies. And I think his biggest sale was like to Goldman Sachs for 250 million.
Okay.
So that's the guy.
Good company.
That's the guy. Yeah, it's a good company, right? Like that's what I like to think. So I had a really good deal with the guy, and I'm happy. So like for me, my goal right now is like when you asked me about the exit, I already kind of got my exit in a sense when I did that deal with him. So my goal right now is to just how can I grow the business and become literally the best platform, the best system? Because money for me right now is not really a concern. It's more I want to become the best system. Like that's how I think. Like I'm very competitive,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Like some of these competitors, these 2 of them, they sold too early, I think. And if they just kept going, and like again, dangling a little bit of money in front of you, what are you going to do with it? Like if you have $10 million or $50 million,
How's your life going to change? That's
it's
the question.
not like if it's 10 million or 50 million, it's not really going to change that much, it's one of those things where, you're still going to need to do something every day. Right. And like, I thought about it, I'm like, okay, if I sell my business fully, full sale, what am I going to do? Right. Let's say I go into all the hot topics, AI, climate, electric, right? Those three things, those are what's hot right now. Even if the area is hot, it's still going to take me years to build what I've built with elevated living. Elevated living is such a massive, there's so many moving parts. We have so many revenue streams. It would take me 5-6 years to build a brand new business. And there's still a chance it would fail.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I like what I do with elevated living. There's no exit plan. It's really just, keep adding new features, talking to customers. What can we do? What problems do you guys have? That's what I do now. Like majority of my day is like I meet with customers. I say, what can we help with? Like, what are you guys doing? Show me what you're doing here. Show me what you're doing there. And I literally spend an hour or two with different property management companies, and they're showing me kind of how they do certain things on the back end, because I don't know what they do, right? But they show me, and I'm like, oh, well, what if you did it this way? Like an outsider perspective. And they're like, oh yeah, that we could do it that way. That would be better. And I'm like, yeah, it would be better. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Maintenance request, right? So right now, when you go to Old Town Park, you submit a maintenance request in Rent Cafe, right? And then what happens next?
They send you an email saying it's confirmed, and there's always a permission to enter.
Right. But do you know when they're going to show? Is there like a schedule? You don't know when it's going to happen, right?
I don't even know if it's going to happen. They send you this email, they're like, it's waiting to be approved. That email always bothers me. I'm like, what do you mean waiting to be approved? My light's out. My fridge isn't working. My sink is like, whatever's wrong. I'm like, no, just come and do it. Don't tell me you're waiting for approval.
Right. So like what you're saying, like it makes sense that like why isn't it done differently, right? Like if you look at like companies that are pure software companies, that like if you look at like a HubSpot or a Salesforce, like how do they handle support tickets, right?
Yeah.
You put a support ticket in, you get an ID assigned, you get some sort of automated message,
we'll do this
or you say, hey, schedule a call, schedule this. So like in maintenance, for example, I'm like, I told my clients, I'm like, why don't we, how there's like a Calendly link or like a HubSpot meeting link? I'm like, why can't a resident get an automated text that says, hi, we received your request, and then they get a Calendly link or something.
When do you want it done?
That says choose a time for someone to come by, and then that calendar is linked to the maintenance person's calendar, right, real time, and they could choose a time that works for them.
And if it was something specific, like let's say it's a light, because the general drop down that I've seen, it's general, it's nothing specific. But if you could build in the specific things that happen the most often, like a clogged toilet, a clogged sink, the most popular items, right? Yeah. The guy's like, okay, this takes 30 minutes, or it takes 15. So you could have those blocks on the calendar already there, and then you're saving with the scheduling of the staff member too.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know, and especially with like ChatGPT now, like I've been obsessed with ChatGPT.
It's fun, right?
Oh my God, I've been going down black holes.
How are you going to use it? What are your thoughts?
I'm already using it. I've been using it for the last whenever it came out. I've been using it a lot. I've been using it to help me write proposals. I've been using it to help me write contracts. I've been using it to help me write paraphrase things, content for the website. We're building out new landing pages right now. It's insane. Like basically what I'm using it for is I feel like I'm still not at I'm at the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more, like for example, sales. I think a lot of companies in general, they have too many sales reps, at least in prop tech, what I'm in. Like we got to, over $10 million a year in ARR with our business, with me and one salesperson, right? So that's 450 buildings, right? And there's companies I look at, they have like 15, 20 sales reps, right? And they raise a lot of money, and they
I also feel like because there's only so many property managers,
right?
And you're really getting to the property manager, right? And if you can do well by one building, it's probably going to circulate from there.
It does. And so it's kind of like, you don't need nowadays you don't need all these people. You just need one. You need a director. You need like a.
But you're also an owner.
You need like
to be fair, you're an owner.
I am. But
No one's ever going to operate the way you're operating.
true, but you could find good people. I believe that you could find good people, and you can show them like do this way, and then they'll learn. And I think there's some people that are very creative. They like think, oh, how they don't see a problem. They're like they see the problem, but they're like automatically thinking of like how can I get past this problem, right? And that's generally how I operate. That if someone comes to me with a problem, I go, it's not a problem. We got to do it this way. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to modify this, that. We're going to make it work. We do that all the time. So if a manager calls us and says, hey, I need this feature. And, we have a feature that does like X, Y, Z, but then it doesn't do this one thing, but there's a way you can MacGyver it to make it do what they want to do by either connecting to like a third party API or whatever it is. But the point I'm trying to make is that, going back to like the automation, you don't need a huge sales team. You can literally, you just need someone to come up with a plan. And the plan, you need to look at all the different software that's out there, how to connect ChatGPT to this software, and then this software connects to this. And it needs to be like a one big loop.
And then we're slaves for robots.
It's crazy though, but like, have you seen like the ChatGPT, like the prompt and stuff? Like, for example, you could do something like where I can generate, let's just say I wanted to like get your attention.
Are you
right?
paying for 4 or are you on 3.5 right now?
I'm using the free one.
Okay.
Yeah, like the free ones.
I'm curious like how
The free one's already so good. Like
Yeah.
you could set up.
but it's so good. Imagine where it's going.
Oh yeah. So like the ChatGPT, then there's like the image generator as well. I forgot what it's called. But essentially what you can do, if I want to get your attention and make it very personal to you, this thing will, you can get like a lot of data points on somebody from online, right? Try to figure out where you live, what you do, where you went to school. So you could off those things, even like if you sign up for like soccer leagues or something, it will find that online. So it could take those things and then you could say ChatGPT generate like an intro, maybe 1 or 2 sentence that would appeal to you, right? And essentially it generates it automatically. And it could do this. Imagine about 1,000 leads in your system. It does this within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It will generate a custom prompt for every single person within 5 seconds. You load it into your CRM and nobody will ever know that it was AI generated. They're going to think that you sat there, did all this research and emailed them. But here's what's crazier. You can actually figure out where someone lives, generate an image of a local coffee shop near where they live or whatever it is, or their business. And you could say, hey, you want to meet for coffee? And you could put yourself, you could take a photo of you, right? You could take a white background.
Yeah.
So you get like a good photographer to take a good photo of you that you can reuse in these images. And it will plant you in the coffee shop or like outside how Google Images has like the image. Yeah. It will plant you in front of a coffee shop doing like a thumbs up, like coffee, and it'll send it to you. Like, it's crazy.
So you got me thinking a lot here. Can you upload your contacts like that and do that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's sickening. It's like I said, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where there's so much you can do. And there's new stuff coming out like every month now that I've been looking at. There's like this thing that called Auto GPT
Okay.
that came out, and you could basically create a playbook. It does like, what I was talking about, like different things. That's what you could do. You could connect a playbook where it's like,
So it's like a Zapier for AI in a way.
kind of, but it's literally like, for example, you might say like, I need you to write me a book. And here are the things you're going to do sequentially. So when you're writing a book, let's say you and I were doing it. I've never written a book, but if I was writing a book, I'd probably be like, oh, well, I need to create like a content outline. I need to choose like a category. I need to have some sort of research, right? So you're going to tell this thing one time. You're going to say like, here's the outline, here's the book, what I want. I want you to do research on these following things for each of these sections. I want you to talk about, some sort of like, so again, when you say research, it's going to like different websites, right?
It's kind of the whole internet.
Yeah, it's going through a lot of different things. Going on LinkedIn, researching there, going on Reddit, getting real-time data, quotes from people. This thing will write you a whole book. And it's just going to follow your plan. Like you're going to be like, for every section, I need you to do X, Y, Z. And it writes the whole book. You'll have like 400 pages in, gosh, probably a minute or two. But it's all about prompts. How you write the prompt to the AI. That's what I learned too, that you can't just write me a book. You have to be like very, very specific. It's like when they talk to a computer, they code to get the computer to give them information. So like back in the day, you have command prompt.
No.
On a PC, you ever use a command prompt? Yeah. It's like that black thing that has like
DOS.
I don't know I don't know. It's called command prompt, but it was like a black thing that always appeared on every PC, and there was like an underline, like an underscore, and you could type into it.
Yeah, so I think that's the DOS like mainframe of the computer, and then you're typing in command prompts to get it to run the program.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever it is.
So I always call it a command prompt. So when I was in high school, I was able to shut down when I was in keyboarding class. Each computer had a name. And you could find the label, the teachers, they labeled the computer. So I could shut down people's computers remotely during keyboarding class.
That's great.
I could write the message. The message would pop up like, you lose 60 seconds, shut down. and it would shut down everything they were working on. So in the command prompt, like you basically, you ask the computer for something, right? In their language, and it gives a response back. That's kind of what AI does. Like you basically tell it, you have to like prompt it same way, and then it gives you a response right back for whatever you ask for. But you got to tell it very specifically. But it still does a good job. Even if you just do like, give me like one sentence marketing slogan for X. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how is the best way to use it. There's so many ideas, but
for real estate.
For real estate, yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that you should probably figure out like who's potentially going to be moving.
Mm-hmm.
You can maybe look up like who lived in a place for a long time, maybe has kids, family, and maybe is looking for a bigger house in the suburbs. Get their information from LinkedIn somehow, like get their email contact, like reach out to them, introduce yourself. Like, I'm surprised more realtors don't do that. Like I don't.
We can buy that data. But my experience with it, not that great.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know, like so you can buy like there's Zoom info and there's always, and I don't know if it's always that good and if it's accurate data. It's how like you get like a cold email from somebody.
Yeah.
I'm surprised more realtors don't do that. Like being like, hey Konrad, like I live, I see you live in Chicago and, live here and here and here in this address. Like I live nearby, because you have their, like, who the owners are.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You can get that
Less
data.
than a trust. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could say like a personalized email where it's like, hey, by the way, like, I live in the area. I just want to introduce myself. And then you could use AI to run this. You could run it all day long without even having to lift a finger. You set it up, and it will find people, email them, and it will customize like a, individualized message to them. But that would be one way.
We're going to talk offline about that part.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you get the customized information, like how you could run all that with that data. Because I can get all those things.
There's.
But I don't know how to run it through the AI to perform that function.
You would have to get like some sort of a CRM to connect to, the scraper, data scraper. It's going to be like a big project, but it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Usually.
Once you invest in that,
and then you maintain it.
Yes.
The problem with a lot of these things is that once you set it up, it's so big sometimes that like you forget what you did.
I believe that. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I actually started doing.
Well, you're working on it for so long, and you're like, I did something 6 months ago. I'm past that.
Yeah, and it goes out of your head.
Yeah.
Once you set it up, and then you're like, you need to make like an adjustment to it, right? For example, and like there's so many times where I broke the whole thing because I forgot. Like there was like one little thing, because you test it, right? You make sure that it works. And sometimes there's like these like variable things that happen, and you remember like when you're doing it, you're like, oh yeah, to fix this little variable, I'm gonna do X, Y, Z. But then when you're 6 months later, you don't forget about these little things, and then you modify something, it breaks the whole damn integration, and you got to do it from scratch. So it's complicated. It's almost like good to have like a you document it as you do it. So that's what I started doing now. Or if I do build something out, I document everything I did.
So you have a log of it all, so you can go back and
Yeah,
reference it.
like why I did this, why, what, and where. You want to know why. That's the main thing, because sometimes I'm looking at these things, I'm like, why did I do it that way? And then, because you're looking at it like you wouldn't normally connect it. But then later that variable pops up and you're like, oh, well, that's why I did it, because this one use case wouldn't have worked.
Because that one thing.
Yeah. And if you don't have it documented, you're going to have to redo it from scratch usually. So I use Zapier now.
For some things. Yeah.
Yeah, Zapier is pretty good. I just wish it had like a bi-directional sometimes, like,
It's only going one way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like Zapier is it's a good tool. I use it for my stuff too. It's one of those things that connects with everything. There's another one called Integromat. They changed their name though, I think, to like Make, but that one's good too. Do you ever use that one?
No.
It's similar to Zapier. It's less expensive.
Okay.
I don't
It's
know.
funny. Our business is becoming less techy.
Really?
My business personally. I can't give away my secrets here, but point being is like getting in front of people on a tech side isn't necessarily as good. And some of the people I'm trying to get in touch with are not in front of the tech. And sometimes those people are more valuable to get in front with.
Yeah. So I think tech only goes. So there's a saying, right? All roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
And while you can do emails and all that, you still need to be doing other things.
Yeah. And the warm, fuzzy personal touch never dies.
Yeah.
And if
I
I can
agree.
if I can get in front of someone, I usually feel good about that meeting. It's just how do you get in front of them? That's the hardest part.
Yep. That's why we do conferences. Like in our industry, like conferences are nice because you can get in front of the decision makers in person. And usually when you email somebody, they think you're like, they don't know you. They're like, oh, who's this random person?
Always.
There's no relationship, right?
Yes.
But when you
Another-
meet somebody in person, it's like different. Like, oh, I met John. John has my back. He's gonna get it done for me.
Yeah.
Like he's a good guy.
Or it's the opposite. Or you're like, I don't like that
I don't
guy.
trust this person.
Yeah, like the vibe I got, it's not
Yeah.
good. It goes both ways.
100%.
And I think most people have those feelings about those people, or some people are better at feeling that feeling about someone.
Yeah.
It's a sixth sense.
It is.
I think we all had sixth sense that probably died out.
But you deal
our
with
lives have
people
been
a lot.
easier. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for me, back when I was younger, I did personal training. So it was like one of my buddies, I remember I had a job somewhere. I was getting like $8 an hour, like working part-time. And my buddy's like, hey man, like, it's funny because he works with me. He's my director of revenue. But he was also a trader, at this place, I guess. And he's like, my company's like, it was Export, Export.
Yeah.
He worked there and he's like, my company's hiring and, you like working out. I'm like, yeah, I like working out. For me, I'm like, this is great. Like I could just go get a free membership.
Yeah.
And it was like $20 an hour, at the time.
Okay.
Which was like double what I was getting at like the store I was working
I
at.
hope you're charging more than that now.
Oh yeah. But this is when I was like 17, 18,
Okay. Okay.
and I,
How old are you now?
now 32.
Okay.
So yeah, I was 17, 18 and I was, training people. And what I learned though, and if you have kids, right, you need to get your kids in like a customer service sale, like where they're meeting people, because I felt like I developed so much doing that.
You learn about people.
Yeah, because you learn about you learn about different types of personalities. Like there was people that were very uptight, more relaxed, older, younger, different, beliefs, right? And, you need to know how to navigate that, right? And, as a trainer, like people would tell me all their, it's like, they say you're a barber, you tell all your secrets. I would learn so many crazy things from people. And what I learned was like one thing, for example, was like, doctors, and like these people that are like in these high level positions, um, they're not always like the best people, right? So like I've worked with, all types of people like lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, you know, everybody, finance, hedge fund. And what I learned was that, sometimes the people that like, especially like healthcare, you'd be amazed at how many people are just so unhealthy.
Oh
Like
yeah.
your doctor, if they don't work out, and like I don't know if I could go to a doctor,
For health advice, I
who
don't
didn't
know
work
if your
out.
doctor is your best person to go to.
But I just think but they're doctors, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, I was always like,
They might be a great surgeon. They might be great for this particular thing that they do, but ask a doctor about vitamins.
yeah. So if anybody like, I'm sure someone's gonna be watching this podcast. Anybody has a good doctor recommendation for a 32-year-old male that like, again,
So
doctor,
if you do this exit, I think a real big business that's only going to keep growing is health concierge.
yeah.
That's a huge business.
But you need some sort of like insurance, because people want to go through insurance ultimately, right? And the health
No. No insurance.
no insurance.
There's enough people who will just
Like-
pay a monthly fee. Let's say it's $300 a month. You get the subscription, access, and I think you bypass all insurance. I think there's enough people with enough income.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I would love that because it's I looked into these systems like there's a One Medical, there's a few of these.
I think there's more boutique services that
Yeah.
are doing it. I don't know if anyone's really scaled the model yet. And
Right.
if it scales, it might also fail. Like scaling's great. And for a business like yours, scaling makes perfect sense. For some businesses, there shouldn't be scaling. And scaling is actually going to erode what the business is.
Right. Yeah. So with the going back to doctors, it's like one of those things where it's you'd be surprised at like who I met. It's the people that you think are like angels are devils, and sometimes you think someone's like a devil, but they're actually like really good person. And so you learn a lot. And I think like everybody, if you have young kids, you should 100% work for like a customer service sales type thing where you do get to know people and talk to people, because it's going to help you later in life.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's all relationships. And especially when you are helping somebody, what's nice about training was it was like a very easy job. Like people come in, I want to lose some weight. They lose like 30 pounds, they start crying to you, they're like, oh my God, I feel so good, I've never felt this good in my whole life. So that you're like, wow, people depend on me, right? Like
Yeah.
people depend on me. So it kind of like teaches you like all these things where like people rely on you. You got to be a good communicator, got to be on time, show up. So the only bad habit that I got from being a trainer was that for me, there is no Saturday and Sunday. There's no holidays. To me, it was like, I remember when I first started working, I was like, oh, it's Columbus Day? Oh, perfect. I can schedule all my clients 8 hours back to back on Columbus Day. Oh, it's Saturday? Oh, perfect. Saturday, nobody's working today. I'll schedule all my clients starting at 6 a.m. until like 2 p.m. Right. And now I still kind of have that where like I just don't look at.
That's how I have it as a realtor too. It's the same exact thing.
I don't look at it. For me, the job needs to get done. I get the job done, and that's it.
The mindset of like waiting for the weekend, that's really depressing to me.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Like you could have a weekend today. Like
Mm-hmm.
right now, look, it's Friday midday. We're having a weekend. We took off as long as you get your stuff done.
Yes.
Like all of our, I don't know, how many people do you have on your team?
So there's Adam right here behind the cameras, and then we have 3 agents.
Okay. So, with our business, I let everybody work from home.
Mhm.
And it was even before the pandemic, I pretty much let them work from home. We would meet once in a while, but ultimately not everybody can work from home. I think there's like certain types of, personalities.
Some people don't have the discipline, and
Yeah.
like even me, I can work from home, but I'm more productive when I'm not.
Right.
I just am.
Right.
If I'm in a more public setting, there's like this weird thing about pressure.
Right.
Even if it's not like I could be working next to Adam, or I could be here alone with people walking down the street. And the fact that people can see me working in this office makes me work more.
Yeah. So it's like, you need to have like your, like wherever you feel comfortable working. I think ultimately, like you don't need to be like, for example, if you had like 30 people here, it might not be as productive because then they're going to keep coming to you, interrupting you, whatever ChatGPT automations you're trying to build.
Yeah.
Boom, there it goes. Like you're almost done, someone came, asked you a question, you're like, shit, I just forgot what I was doing.
I used to say that about our big office. I would keep headphones in all the time just so people wouldn't bother me. And they weren't even people that were on my team or that I work with, just people in the office who like want to chat and like take 5 minutes of your time away.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's
I don't
unproductive.
I don't want to talk to you. And so I would always keep headphones in, even if nothing was on.
That's why I love like, being able to work wherever, whether it's your home, wherever you want to be. It's the best because
It's nice to pop in somewhere and just work for an hour, 2, 3.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling, I really love that.
if I'm doing Zoom calls, it's tough to like go to a coffee shop because then I'm like,
You're that asshole.
I'm the asshole talking super loud. I'm like making like I'm doing like I'm moving my hands. I'm showing them the app.
Do you have a Capital One account?
Capital One, no.
Yeah. So you should get a Capital One account. At their banks, they have legitimate. So they have like a coffee shop / WeWork system. And as long as you have an account there, you can use all these spaces.
Interesting. I had no idea.
So when I go,
I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of people that know that.
I think there's 3 in Chicago. There's one right down the street. There's one. There's 2 between like a
And is it
mile that way
nice?
and a mile.
Is there like private?
It's very nice.
Is there like private
Very
conferences?
nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can use these spaces plus all the coffee and teas half off.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I'm traveling, that's what we look for. We try. My wife and I do that. Try to find those spots.
That's a good idea. So anybody who's listening, it's real estate. It's a good idea to add into their retail.
Get a Capital One account.
Capital One. Yeah, I have a lot of clients actually adding co-working spaces now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The Zoom rooms.
Yeah, they're
kind of like this big, right?
Yeah, they have like an empty retail space or whatever, or like an unused lobby area, and they'll literally convert it to like a co-working.
That's smart.
And they'll get memberships, and people can come in there.
Oh, they're doing it like that.
Yeah.
They're not giving it to the residents.
So residents, the way it works is residents can go there. So like, there's like a table, public table, anybody could be there, right? But if there's like a private office, then you pay. And the resident can
I don't like that.
The resident can pay for it. People from the public can pay for it. But so think of it like this, the buildings that I'm talking about they'll have a resident only one, right? Somewhere on like the 8th floor, and think lobby, unused lobby space, they will convert it to like a co-working
Killing
area.
my vibe.
But they do that.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. These buildings charge so much rent that when you start to really monetize everything, it turns people off.
Right. I would say this, with co-working spaces, coffee shops, I've seen a bunch of buildings do a whole bunch of different things. Like one building had a bar, like a bartender.
They have that in Uptown. It's
A
real
lot
smart.
of times, believe it or not, this is like good. I'm going to say it out loud here, but don't do it. Like, don't, like, I
bar?
agree. Like, yeah, a lot of these,
What are your insights? Tell me your
a lot
insights.
of people, so a lot of developers, they have these, these ideas where they're going to turn, they're going to have a coffee shop in their lobby, and they're going to run it themselves. They want to run it themselves.
That's the bad idea. You have to outsource it. That way you get the income from that. So there's a particular Flats does that in Chicago. They do the bar and they do the coffee shop.
Yep.
The coffee shop is smart because then you can that's your doorman.
It is,
right?
And that's what some buildings try to do. But then
Yes.
what happens is, if the coffee shop's not making money, then even if you use it, so I'll give you an example. I had a company that used a third-party vendor for the coffee shop, and I've had a few stories like this, but I'll give you one example. I was visiting a property in Austin. So actually, it was like I saw it live. I walk into the building with a client. We were doing like a tour with one of my clients. It was a sister property, and there's no concierge. And there's this coffee area, right? Like it looked like a coffee shop. And if you go on Google and type in like coffee around that area, there was like the coffee shop popped up, like 1 star. It was like 30 reviews.
Oh, interesting.
So long story short, I found out what happened, and what happened was they had a coffee shop. The buildings pay like a monthly fee to do this to some vendor, right? So it'll be like
That's backwards.
Yep. But the vendor does everything for them. They'll get like the coffee, they'll hire the people.
They're not going to care.
They're not, but this is how it works most of the time.
Okay.
And to do it any other way, if they did it in-house, it's a money-losing operation.
Yes,
Typically.
I believe that.
And
That's why they have those coffee vending machines.
coffee shop, money-losing operation. Whenever there's personnel involved, and like the building tries to do it, so the developer themselves, or they hire like another vendor, it's gonna bring more headache and more problems. And probably even have a negative impact on their NOI than more than anything else. At least the ones I've seen. And I've seen a lot of these. I've seen where the owners try to do it. They hire, sometimes they hire a vendor, and it never works out well. I saw another one that had a bartending service. They had a bar, and they were like, we want to offer like drinks at the pool on weekends. I go, so I'm a resident. So I'm just thinking in my head, right? Like I always put myself in, if you lived at Old Town Park and you could bring your own drinks to the pool, why would you pay 10, 20 bucks to get a drink from the pool, right?
Old Town Park said they were going to do this. And I had the same exact thought. I'm like, so you want to try and make money from me here too?
Right.
I would never pay.
Nobody would pay.
Never.
Nobody would pay.
Never.
And so it's, to me, it's like common sense. Like it won't work, but it will work. It will work. I'll tell you where it will work. If you have a building that has 1,000 units, 1,200 units, 3 towers that have a shared amenity space, and it's huge, right? It will work there.
I think you put it as part of the commercial space.
You could do it that way too.
Yeah. I think if you have it, if you have it, if it makes you feel like you're leaving, like you left the building, you've left this place, because a lot of people just want a new space.
Right.
Right. That's the feeling. When I go somewhere, I'm not really leaving for the drink, right? I'm not going there for the beverage. I'm going there for the new environment.
Exactly.
That's big on me. I'm all about environments. I know the
Yeah.
best places
You
to
wanna
go in
meet
Chicago.
people, like-
yes, but I also want to be in a cool place. Like I like to be in cool spaces.
It gets you amped up.
It gives me good energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's why I like the building gyms, but a lot of buildings, like I'm not gonna lie, and I've been telling them this for years, there's some that do a good job, but like for example, they all build a yoga studio, right? The yoga studio, it's always like the same. It's very boring. There's one building in Chicago that I helped them. They actually so Wolf Point East. So I work with
That's one of the best amenities in the building.
Yeah. So they
in
have
the city.
so they actually,
Their
when
apartments
they
are
were
okay.
building their gym, I met one of the their construction guys who was like planning the project, and I'm like, look, it would be really cool if you guys, they have a yoga studio, they have that, but I'm like, make one room where it's like a dynamic training studio, where you have a treadmill, you have battle ropes, you have like this big gym rack where people can do like circuit training, just like they do when they go to like
A gym.
yeah, like an Orange here, Barry's Boot
Or if
Camp.
you're going to Equinox and they're doing a class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I go, all these buildings in the whole, at least in Chicago, right, that I've seen, they've always had like they have a yoga studio with wooden floor or vinyl
that
floor,
no one really uses.
and then mirrors, and that's it. And there's no weights, there's no nothing. And they do yoga classes, but like, what if someone wanted like, something a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And that's where like, at Wolf Point, we actually host, it's like the one building in Chicago that has a legitimate like group training setup where you have all these different like bells and whistles for the residents. And what the one thing they didn't do that I told them to do, I'm like, get like dark lighting, get a sound system built in, build, like, it doesn't cost, they're already building this huge building, it doesn't cost that much. Put like a sound, put cool lights in there. They didn't do that part, but they did everything else, which I was happy with. But imagine like you go into your own building and you have this cool vibe, and you can even, like, if the classes were really good, I think people would pay extra, so they wouldn't have to go anywhere. Possibly. Maybe. I know you don't want to pay, but there are some. Okay, let me give you an example. I told one of my developers.
There's always going to be someone who wants to pay,
Tell me what you think about
but
that.
it's not going to be the majority.
Tell me what you think. All right. So, by the way, you always end up paying.
Yeah.
Because it's in part of your rent. They usually factor those things in.
So
most of the
that's
time.
my argument, right? Like, because I when I look at these buildings, I know every month I'm paying an extra $1,000 for the amenities. That's what they cost.
But people are willing to do it.
I pay it. I'm happy to pay it.
You said you don't want to move to a house, right?
I'm happy to pay it. But when you start upcharging on every little thing,
Oh, yeah.
it's the microtransaction.
Yeah.
I hate microtransactions.
So, for example, like I had a cool idea. I was talking with one of my clients, this developer. They're trying to get like something different done. They have like this massage room. Like, the massage rooms, I think personally, those are a waste of money.
Yeah.
Most people, if
You're gonna
if
have
you
it in
have
my
a traveling
apartment.
therapist, they're
Look,
going to come
it's
to
gonna
your
be my apartment.
Yeah.
Why do I want to go to your massage
Nobody
room?
wants to go down to a massage room. So like
Agreed.
massage rooms, waste of money. Don't build them. I highly recommend against it. If you want it to look cool on a tour, then spend the money.
Yeah.
It's a good talking point.
It's
right?
what I think it does is it elevates.
It does elevate.
It
Yeah.
elevates the building.
It does. It's a great talking point on a tour.
Yeah.
But when someone moves in and they order a massage, especially like I see the data, they book massage therapists through our app all the time. People always say, go to my unit.
Yeah.
Bring a table into my unit. And we do. We
Why
bring
would
a
I leave my
table,
unit if I
linens.
don't have to?
Exactly. So I told them, I said, convert the massage room, like all that space you have, get like a cryotherapy chamber, get ice
Cold plunge.
bath, cold plunge.
Agreed. I've been saying the same exact thing, and no building has listened.
And those people that want that stuff, they are willing
I'm
to
going to
go
choose
and
the
pay
building.
extra.
For cryotherapy, yes. Cold plunge, no. But I'm going to choose the building if there was a cold plunge.
I know.
It'd be a huge
I
thing.
know.
One of the new Ani buildings, they got rid of their communal sauna, a regular normal sauna, and they decided to do infrared. I was like, this is so stupid. This is so bad. You did individual little personal saunas, so one person can go in there. Do you know how many people I've met in my sauna? I use my sauna almost every day.
Right.
I use it a lot. I've made friends there. I like it. Plus, I like a traditional sauna. I think most people do. So there's some people that like infrared, but it's not the same thing. You don't get that exhaustion.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
But all those things like infrared sauna, regular sauna, ice, cold plunge, hot plunge,
Cryotherapy would be cool in the building.
Cryotherapy.
It's got a huge liability though. It's a huge tank, and you're like, it's a bomb waiting to go off.
But they don't use hydrogen, so you can get an electric chamber.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you get an electric chamber, and there's a few companies that make them.
But most are hydrogen, aren't they?
Most, yeah, and then it wouldn't be like if you did hydrogen, it wouldn't be feasible for a developer to do. But if you did electric,
It would have
those
to
are
be kind of
feasible.
it'd be cool to have a self-service model.
Well, that's what
sign
that's
the
what I'm
waiver.
getting at. So basically, you build out this cold plunge area with all these bells and whistles, and there's two ways to do it. One, you build it into the rent, or two, you have like a special area that's key fob access or phone access, whatever. And you can only get in there if you pay extra. And I believe that there will be people that will pay extra.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think
For cryotherapy, I agree.
there's a lot of the other cool amenities I've seen are like the ski machines and golf simulators. Everybody's seen the golf simulators.
Well, you know what's funny? We're talking Ani. I pick on Ani sometimes because I think they're a great company. But for instance, they don't have one golf simulator. And it's like, I know so many people.
I play golf, yeah.
I don't play golf, but I know so many people that have passed on their buildings. They're like, the other building had a golf simulator.
Yeah, I know.
Like, they're losing so much business. They don't even realize.
I know. So like the golf simulators, huge business.
Yes.
I'll tell you this, we have a amenity reservation system in our app, and I work with a lot of high-end buildings. So a lot of these buildings, they have golf simulators, and I can see if I were to say what's the most reserved amenity
Great question.
in our entire app, it's the golf simulator.
Isn't that all you need to
there's
know?
buildings where it's reserved all day long.
That's what I hear from my friends who
Monday
live in them.
through Sunday.
They say it's hard to get the reservation
Wolf
in their
Point
building.
East. They probably live at Wolf Point East. Wolf Point East, like there was a time where we had the manager called. He goes,
Conrad, they do live at Wolf Point East.
They probably do. Yeah. They basically the manager goes like, Conrad, we need to figure out because we have a book. We could do like a future reservation blocker, how far in advance someone can reserve. We didn't have it on. So people were going in there and just booking. So we turned on this, like, you could only reserve like 14 days in advance now. So now people have to go in there every day, check it, So now it's more fair because the slots open up like at midnight or something. So if someone really wants it, they have,
1201.
yeah, or they can go to management and say, hey, management, like, I haven't been able to get in. Can you do it for me?
How about people not using the space? When people reserve things and then don't use it. Have you thought about a solution for that?
So access control, because then you can actually monitor, for example, reserve. So think about it as like actions, right? You reserve the space, right? And then you have to show up there, right?
Yeah. And if you don't use it within 15
so
minutes.
you reserve it, then you have an access control on that door for that golf simulator, because usually it's inside like a room. At least in Wolf Point it is. Then you have a fob that basically automatically checks them in. So that fob not only registers and opens a door, but you can sync the data back to our app and say that this person showed up.
Well, so my problem is you should lose your reservation after 5-10 minutes, and then it should be open, or there should be a wait list or something like that.
Yeah, so you could do that. But a lot of these reservations are like no more than an hour. So it's almost like like, how would you get notified? Like, do you get put on a waiting
Wait
list?
list.
Like, there'd have to be some sort of wait list feature or something.
Wait list.
But it's still tricky to run that. It's like a tricky subject.
I'd say it's tricky, but there's a lot of people. So you just said people were
maybe
booking
you
these things
follow
months,
it. You follow the amenity. Like
but people would book it months in advance, right?
Right.
I guarantee you 50% of people actually use that time.
yeah, but that's why the access would help, because the access, if you had access, you could actually verify if they came in.
But that's too late. I need something in real time saying this person what missed the reservation
Yeah,
for
so
this first 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5-10 minutes. So if they don't show up in 5 minutes, what you can maybe do is like set up like for example, if you like let's just say you like the golf simulator, right?
Yeah.
For example, you could set up an option where you could follow the amenity and get real-time updates about the amenity. And essentially, so if someone does get a cancellation, you would get an alert on your phone that says like the amenity you're following just opened up and it's free for the next 45 minutes.
Yes.
And then someone can go in and
That's
take a
what I'm
reservation.
thinking.
So we could probably build it. We
Build
actually just
it. Give
created
it-
we
camera,
created a new feature
camera.
right here.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, we do get requests for that, and I think it's tricky because like a lot of people like they already have plans sometimes, so there might be some people that are free.
Those
and
people are
will come
assholes.
down.
No, it's this entitled. And see, here's the problem with a lot of these buildings. And I live in one. I've lived one for a little bit now, but I get it. You deal with a lot of entitlement. People, for instance, the trash chutes down. Do you know what people do? They pile their trash by the
Oh,
trash.
trust me,
I'm like, what? Who raised you? Take it back to your unit. Come back in 15 minutes or do it tomorrow, whatever you have to do. Who do you think is picking this up? Is someone roaming the hallways looking for your trash? And so people would do the same thing. I know people reserve things all the
clog
time.
their toilet.
Yes.
And they make a maintenance guy.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Get a plunger.
Yes.
Plunger toilet.
Yes.
I'm just like, that's crazy.
Yes. I agree with you. And so when people make reservations for things and they don't have to pay, someone has to pay $5, guarantee they'd be there. But because there's no loss if they don't show up, they're like, maybe I'll go on 6 o'clock on a Friday.
No, another cool thing that they did at Wolf Point was they have a golf lounge.
Yeah. With,
So-
with the whiskey storage.
Yeah, and
You want to hear a funny story? I'm going to cut you off.
You were there?
Well, yeah. I've been there. It's funny. You did no research on me. We have videos of every single one of these buildings.
I'm sure you do.
But here's funny about Wolf Point. Wolf Point told us to take our video down,
really,
and it was our most popular video. Yeah.
Interesting.
We had a great video of that.
I'm gonna talk to the property manager.
Yeah, go talk to them.
I know them.
Yeah, very short-sighted, myopic, and I'd say a famine mentality.
Right.
Good press is good press.
Right.
And all I do is talk great about the building. Made us take it down. It was our highest viewed video at the time.
I'm surprised.
I'm not.
Are you? So I guess in general, right? Not even like Wolf Point. Are you just not allowed to film?
No, this was BS. So they allowed us to do it during the pandemic because they were struggling, and then as the pandemic lightened and the building was doing fine, then they were like, no. So they gave us permission and then took it away.
They retracted it.
Yep.
So you lost the ability.
I lost my time. I lost my energy. I lost my money on the video, and I lost the potential to sell the video.
I'm surprised that. So let me ask you this: but is it in general like can you not film a building like that?
So what we do is
it's private.
we get permission. We get permission from all the buildings. So they give us permission. We show up. The property manager walks us around. That's what's so funny about this. Like the property manager was there while we were doing it. Like it's not like we snuck into the building.
Yeah, but what were they losing by you having that video?
Control. Everyone wants control. They want to control the brand. They want to control the leads. Their fear is someone's reaching out to me instead of reaching out to them. What they don't realize, we do all these videos. We do them for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of people go to the buildings without contacting us.
Right.
If you're watching this, contact us. It takes a lot of time and effort. But there's a building. One of the leasing person told me off camera, like on the sideline, I was showing it to them. They're like, hey, just so you know, like a lot of people show up here and we ask them how they found out about the building. They're like the YouTube guy. I'm the YouTube guy.
That's so funny.
But no one calls us.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they made you take it down. Like,
it was no one. That's the only company that's done it. We've done like 200 videos.
are you able? But let me ask you this: like, are you able to lease a unit there? Like, for
course,
client,
of
you are,
course.
right? Because I know some buildings don't allow it.
Very few. It's a small minority.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just surprised because I feel like
And
if
those
you're-
buildings only do that once they're at a very high occupancy rate.
Yeah.
And then they come, on their knees back to you guys, be like, oh, we're giving concessions. Here's an increased commission. Please come rent our places. But as soon as they're past like 98%, 95%, wherever they are, like, no, sorry, don't come to our buildings anymore.
Interesting.
I get it from a revenue perspective.
See,
but
I
think
don't
it's
know. I don't
short-sighted.
know this side as much. So it's like what you're telling me is like interesting because I I'd imagine that, if you made a video yourself and it was you doing it and you were allowed to film, like you
it's
should have the
professional.
right, yeah, you should have the right to keep the video on. Unless there's like some law against it that
Oh, he threatened me with their lawyers. Yeah.
really
Yeah. Oh, it was such a strong, unnecessary email.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I had no idea that.
Yeah.
Like, I figure like if you
Oh, it's
filmed it-
it's not Wolf Point. It's Luxury Living who does that.
okay, got
So
it.
yeah, Wolf Point is owned by Hines. It's owned by the Kennedys.
Yeah, they have the Luxury Living, I think, doing their leasing.
That's like one of the few buildings where Luxury Living does the whole thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how they got that. That's good for them. Kudos.
Yeah. It's a good name, probably, Luxury Living, right?
I think luxury is the most watered down, unnecessary term. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah, everybody uses it.
Luxury living. I think it's really funny they're called luxury living because Baird and Warner has their like luxury living division.
Yep.
And Baird and Warner's name is this big on all their ads, and luxury living is this big.
Right.
So Baird and Warner is completely clueless to the fact that they're actually promoting another real estate company with every single one of their advertisements when they say luxury living on them.
That's
It's
crazy.
so funny because, and you know what's funny? The logos even look similar.
Really?
Yes. So from an outsider's perspective, no one sees the small B&W. All they see is the large luxury living.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's why I say like naming is important because
Very
like
important.
it's
When I like your name too, what I meant to say earlier is you also didn't use the term luxury. The term luxury, the word used to mean something. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
yeah, everybody says luxury.
Elevated, refined. These are all great terms, all great adjectives, but luxury literally means nothing anymore. You walk into a building, it's like, here's the cheapest cabinets we can get, here's the cheapest floor, and here's our okay location.
Every building that's a mid-rise, high-rise
luxury.
now, they're all luxury.
All luxury.
All of them.
And they'd be so smart to use something else. So Spoke did that. Spoke, they called it, I think they like artistic or like artist building or something like
Yeah.
that. It appealed to those people. It
my
appealed to
brother,
a different demographic.
my younger brother lives there.
Does he use the studio setup they have?
Yeah,
It's cool.
Yeah,
right?
they have like a whole drum set and like I'll tell you this, my brother's a good example of someone who just moved from college. He was in Champaign and he met like all his friends there. He had like I told him I always say like the best thing you could do is you move out from living with the parents, go and try shit.
Yeah.
And essentially, I'm like, go live in like, don't be cheap. You have a job, I know you're not making like his first job. It was like, he wasn't making that much, but he's in finance. I think he worked at Wells Fargo or something, but long story short, it's like, go work, get your job and go rent and live in a nice place.
Yeah.
Don't be cheap. So he went to go live at Spoke, and Spoke was a nice building.
Yeah. It's different.
He met some friends there, and one of them like worked at like an investment bank, and he was like a manager, like a little bit older than him, and he ended up getting a job through a guy he met in his building that they're hanging out with. They're friends. He like 2.5 times his salary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, you're making what? How much your offer?
I
That much.
completely agree with what you said. So I think my biggest mistake moving into the city and doing that is I was like, gotta buy something, right?
Yep.
And so I'd buy in these condo buildings and I'd live in a high rise, and I thought that was the experience. I completely agree with you. Get the like nicest place you can that you can afford in an apartment building with social young people. I moved into all these buildings with old people. Like
Yeah.
there was no one my age in
Yeah.
these buildings. You'd meet someone like, hey, what's your name?
Condo buildings are not the place to go. Like with me, I remember I subleased my first time I moved to the city. And that's why I said the story, because I had the same thing happen to me where I moved to the city. It was like my treat to myself. And I moved to 500 North Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah.
Related.
Yeah, great building. They
I
kind
had-
of started that trend.
Yeah. I had a studio overlooking the playpen, like facing that view. And dude, it was crazy. I remember I had this tiny little studio. I subleased someone's space. It was like $1,700 a month. And for me at the time, that was so much money.
Yeah.
That was like a big commitment. And I remember every time I look at the playpen, I'm like, all these boats, people, on like random days of the week. I'm like, man, what are these people do? And I started meeting neighbors, started talking to people, and like, my neighbor's a doctor, this one's a lawyer, and you just start to like network with people that are just like killing it,
Yeah.
crushing it,
Yep.
right? and it just gets you're in a good environment. And I feel like, everything that happened, happened because of me moving, I put myself in a place where other people are also, you know, you're out there, you're
Striving.
grinding, you're striving, you're building your
People are
business.
trying to
Yeah.
improve themselves in their career.
Yeah.
And you want to meet people that are in that part of their life.
Yeah. So, my brother worked for him, he ended up getting a job out of it. And, it seems like the same thing happened to you.
Yeah.
Essentially
I picked
too.
up clients doing it too.
Yeah. You live in a nice building, you make friends there. And if everybody in your building, like if you live in a super nice building, right? Like One Bennett Park's super nice too,
Yeah.
right? But that one's rental and condos.
I don't think it's worth the money, but that's a different conversation.
Well,
But it's super nice.
Yeah, it's super nice. I heard it was kind of built a little cheap. The walls are a little bit thin.
That might be true. I think the finishes are really nice. I think the spaces are a little small. I think there's better. I just look at everything as a value.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When like here, Nima's the nicest apartment building in Chicago.
Right now, I haven't been there yet.
Oh,
I haven't checked it
they're
out.
not a client?
No, they're not a
You
client.
need to lock that down.
I know.
So that's the nicest building. It's not the best location.
Yeah, location over there is not
So
great.
location's real important.
But they have a boxing ring in the
They have
middle.
everything.
It's crazy.
They have every amenity you could ever imagine. They have it all. There's literally, if you combine every amenity in every single building, it's all there.
They have a golf simulator.
They have
Do
everything.
they have a ski machine?
I don't know. I don't even know what a ski machine is.
I've seen this in one building,
Okay.
and I was so impressed. Basically, it's a ski virtual simulator. You literally has these boots. You go into these boots, and it has a track that goes like left to right.
That's cool.
And you turn it on. You got the slopes, and you're literally skiing.
You know what buildings need to have? Virtual reality. That'd be the next thing. Like, have you seen these virtual reality parks where you're
Yeah.
running on bi-directional treadmills?
Yep.
That's going to be an amenity eventually.
It's tricky with that stuff though, because it's like my VR, right? Like the whole like my Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah.
He's spending all his money on the metaverse, and I was like, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, but all I know is I know one thing. I know that most people, they're on the computer all day, right? They're in front of a screen doing something, and like for me, I would find no joy putting on like a headset. After being and working on the computer.
It's not. Here's why. It's not for you. Everything moves in 10-year increments.
Yeah.
All they need to do is nail this down for 10 years, have it around, have it ubiquitous, have it commonplace. And the next generation is just going to think that's what life
Remember
is.
when you were little, didn't your parents ever say like, don't stare at the screen
Yeah.
too close, you're gonna ruin your eyes?
Yeah.
So
You know,
how's
there's
the VR headset?
Well, there's no research about that. Actually.
Is there no research
it's
about
complete
that?
BS.
Okay, so we just debunked the myth right here
Yeah.
because I
Because
always
John says so.
I always thought I'm like there's probably something to it. If
No.
you're looking at something super close all the time, you're gonna lose your farsightedness. I
But
guess.
I think we're one of the last generations to really appreciate the outdoors.
Yeah.
I think that's really coming. I think technology always wins. It's
Yep.
always going to be on the forefront. We're talking about ChatGPT, all these things, like those are going to win always. They never get back.
Yep.
Technology never stalls. It always keeps moving
going.
forward. And I think whether it's the next generation or two generations, whatever it is, that's going to be the reality.
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 36.
36. So yeah, I mean, you and I are pretty much a generation where you saw everything happen.
I grew up without internet. Did you grow up without internet?
Yeah, in the beginning there was no internet. Like
Okay.
when I remember I had like the modem that was like,
Yeah,
it was like making all these noises, and I remember there was no phones.
Yeah.
It was all like I had to memorize people's phone numbers.
Yeah.
Yep. So I had the same thing. So like I think like when they created the internet, that was like the biggest revolution. I'm curious what's gonna happen with the AI, but I don't think it's gonna be as big as internet.
I do.
You think so?
I absolutely do. Because it's going to create a new internet. It's going to create a new connection. It's going to take away so many jobs. It's going to really transform how our whole
Taking
world
jobs
performs.
away, 100%.
Yeah, but that's going to change. Like what I mean is that's going to change the landscape of how we view the world and
Right.
how we navigate the world.
Right.
And we talk about universal basic income and all these different concepts. AI is going to force that type of idea.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like especially when Elon Musk starts making robots,
Yeah.
humanoid robots,
Yeah.
and robo taxis, like the Uber drivers, they gotta get worried.
You want my opinion? Well, so Uber drivers, so many businesses are built on the back of other people, right? Uber's plan from day one was to have self-driving cars. I guarantee it. And they're like, okay, we're going to have a workforce and then we're going to get rid of them like that. Travis Kalanick, that guy didn't care about any person. I'm sure.
They're still, I think that's still their plan.
Of course, that's still their plan.
That's
why they're not profitable. They've been investing in that since day one. So if you do that, all cars have to be like that, which I'm for. And I think driving is going to be like a sport.
Right.
You're going to go to a track and drive vehicles, and that's going to be the fun. Because who wants to drive? I've been sitting in the back of Ubers for 8 or 9 years.
It's comfy. You can do work. You can call people.
You can be productive. Plus, you think the person is safer than the robot? I'll take the robot 10 times out of 10.
Not yet, though.
I think we're there, but you have to take driving away from everyone, and that's going to be hard.
If you take it away from everybody, I agree.
Yes.
If it was all autonomous robots, it would work.
I think 50 years.
But what happens is these unknown situations that happen, these variable situations, right? That you can't predict. That's what messes with the robots a lot of times.
We're learning those. I think they know those, but society isn't ready for the answer.
Right.
And their answer is real tough. Yeah, they had to kill that person.
Right.
But in the meanwhile, hundreds of people lived because there's no drunk drivers, there's no distracted drivers, there's no texting drivers.
Yep.
We completely bypass and ignore all of those deaths for the one robot death. We're going to have deaths. Deaths are always going to occur. The
Right.
cars, I forget what the question is, but the question is the baby or the old person, right? You go towards the old person. Sorry to say it, baby has the rest of a life in front of him. Old person has X amount of years. You go for the old person. Those things are just realities of life.
Yeah.
And if it was the person driving,
What if it's a pregnant old person?
If it was the person driving, they'd probably hit both.
Right.
They'd probably like go to swerve, hit the older person, and then kill the child.
Yeah. It's there's going to be big changes.
The older person who's pregnant.
Yeah. What would you do in that situation?
See, I don't know.
Yeah. So,
But you have to make the decision, right?
yeah, the AI is you have to train the AI to make
the bottom line is the human would have had to make that decision either way.
Right. And usually people don't think that.
No, you don't have time. Yes, you don't have time to do it.
No way.
This has been lots of fun. I feel like we could talk for a long time.
Yeah, we could.
I gotta shut. Let's see how long. This is the longest one we've ever done.
We're
at over 2 hours. Can you believe that?
Love it.
Yeah, this is lots of fun, Konrad. Where can anyone find you?
So find me online or
Online. I mean, you want to give your phone number?
I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best. I'm on LinkedIn.
No, so like you, but Elevated Living.
So Elevated Living, our website's www.elevatedliving.com. As you know, we talked about.
$1,000.
Our Instagram is Elevated Living as well.
$50.
What
is it on Facebook?
On Facebook, it's Elevated Living Now.
Okay.
I don't like it. I'm not gonna lie, we don't really use the Facebook one as much. We use the Instagram.
We're the same way.
But if you want to, reach out to me, anybody, you could find me on LinkedIn. And we also have a LinkedIn for our business. It's also Elevated Living. So it's very easy.
For that one?
No, that one I actually got.
Good.
LinkedIn was like behind, nobody was really creating
Yep.
pages there. So I didn't have to fight anybody for it.
Can you believe they paid $25 billion for that? For LinkedIn? It's like the most spammy place in the world now.
Now there's a lot of more influencers happening. And, I'm not gonna lie, like, here's the thing, like, I'm trying, I think I told you, like, trying to do the podcast thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, it's tough to get started because it is like a lot of work. But it's one of those things where LinkedIn is really good for my business. Like, I feel like
100%.
there's a lot of like
business to business.
There's a lot of influencers now in like property management. They're trying to like, people trying to, what do you call it? Like, even if like a property management company, they're trying to like elevate themselves to like a developer or an owner, and they're trying to win their business. So they're doing all these things on LinkedIn and they're posting about how their culture and their employees and all this.
They're virtue signaling.
And here's the thing, I love it. It's one of those things where it's like, good for you.
Hold on, but do you like, and you can't be really honest, but that stuff comes off as so fake. When I see a company trying to be on every current trend or like, oh, this is happening,
if they're overdoing it, I guess it depends on what they're overdoing it, right? If they're overdoing it and like they're being fake about it,
it seems so trite and insincere.
But there's some people that actually they like talk about, like, there's some, I would call them influencers, that talk about actual problems in the industry. Where I do follow some of these people, like they have like their own Substack and they write articles.
Property managers do their own Substack.
Developers, ownership, prop tech consultants. Okay. Like I follow a few people and like they have good content, and so it's kind of like it's like a podcast. Like if someone has good content, you want to listen, you want to learn about what they did, how they did it. Like one of my favorite podcasts is like How I Built This.
Yeah.
I love it. Like,
great.
because you hear about like how they started, how, so it's the same thing. Like there's a lot of people out there that are doing good content, but there's also like a lot of like, there is a lot of like this fluff happening. But ultimately I think it's, all press is good press in a sense, right? Like whether it's
So that's a Bud Light right
a little
now.
bit of fluff. Yeah, not that. You need a little fluff sometimes, right?
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah,
Really
of course,
appreciate
man.
it.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Want to watch another My Chicago podcast? Click here. If you want to see exceptional Chicago properties, click here. Thanks for watching.